our speakers and also our moderator to be here in addition to all of our delegates as well. There's a QR code that is located just right behind me. It's a survey from University Malaysia Sabah, the Borneo Tourism Research Center, and they're conducting a survey, and the purpose of this survey is to collect profile data about domestic and international delegates attending the World Tourism Conference. And if you don't mind scanning the QR code behind, and the data of the survey will provide a clearer picture of the tourism impact of this business event held at SICC.
Unwind in comfort. Enjoy Malaysian hospitality and seamless experiences, whether in transit or pre-departure. Unlock more exclusive privileges with every journey. Earn elite points and get one step closer to the next Enrich Elite tier with coveted One World status. Get started now and sign up as an Enrich member for a world of travel, lifestyle, and rewarding experiences. and welcome to Enrich,
the travel and lifestyle loyalty program of Malaysia Airlines, where a world of exclusive rewards await. It's easier now to earn and redeem points plus enjoy all kinds of lifestyle rewards. Earn and redeem Enrich points every day when you shop, dine, or spend with any of our lifestyle partners. And enjoy benefits, privileges, discounts, and more. Book accommodations with Enrich Hotels and get access to over 400,000 properties worldwide. Convert bank points into Enrich points or link other loyalty programs and enjoy the best of both worlds. Unwind in comfort. Enjoy Malaysian hospitality and seamless experiences, whether in transit or pre-departure. Unlock more exclusive privileges with every journey. Earn elite points and get one step closer to the next Enrich Elite tier with coveted One World status. Get started now and sign up as an Enrich member for a world of travel, lifestyle, and rewarding experiences.
and welcome to Enrich.
Ladies and gentlemen, a very good afternoon. While we await our speakers to be mic'd up, we will go ahead and make some announcements here. Yeah, Melissa? So while we await for just a few minutes here, if you don't mind scanning the QR code that is located just behind Melissa and I, or on the far left, right-hand side of the stage. If you'd like to participate in this survey by University Malaysia Sabah, please go ahead and do so. The data will absolutely help us with, the research and all of that.
That's right.
Yeah.
And also, as we wait, just a quick one. Don't forget that we have a dinner for you at 6:30 p.m. at the Magellan Sutra Resort. And for those delegates who are leaving, departing from SICC, we do have the shuttle buses ready for you. They will be departing at 4:20 p.m. I think that's the first bus. And they will be going in intervals. So to be sure what time, which bus you want to get on, you can check with the hospitality desk downstairs to make sure you don't miss the bus.
The first bus leaves at 4:20. I just checked the weather forecast. We are expecting a beautiful day today and the perfect day to watch the sunset. And
That's right.
Yes, and especially to our international delegates, watching a sunset right here in Kota Kinabalu is an experience on its own, and hopefully the clouds will be okay and all of that. So yeah, hopefully we'll have a beautiful sunset today. And the most fun part about this session is we are going to do a lucky draw at the end of the session. So, you might be wondering what prizes you'll be able to win. Maybe Melissa would like to just tease us a little bit with, what prizes will our delegates be able to bring home?
Just very quickly, we have, we have airline tickets for Open Firefly Domestic Destination return tickets. And we also have a stay at the Taras Beach and Spa Resort in Terengganu, as well as a stay at the Swiss Garden Beach Resort at Kuantan, Pahang. So stay around for the lucky draw after the panel session. Over to you, Ben. Let's kick it off.
Yes, let's go ahead and begin session number 2, Discovering Niche Opportunities for Growth. Now, allow me to introduce to you our moderator for this hopefully lively session. Her name is Naila Huda, the broadcast journalist and reporter for Astro Awani. Anyone who watches Astro Awani would absolutely recognize her. Naila is a full-time news anchor and journalist in both broadcasting and digital media platforms. She holds a first-class honours degree in international relations from Queen Mary University of London, with a particular focus on development, Southeast Asian affairs, labour politics, and public policy. Naila also has experience organising fundraising events to support disaster and humanitarian relief efforts by Mercy Malaysia. From a broadcaster to another, I pass the floor to you, Naila.
Thank you so much. Hello everyone, good afternoon. I'm Naila Huda and I'm from Astro Awani. I'll be your moderator for the next session, and I'd like to invite my panelists, my speakers up to the stage before I introduce them. Let's have a round of applause for our speakers for the next session. All right, how's everybody doing? I hope everyone enjoyed their lunch and that you're now ready to continue our dialogue today. Now, I'm your moderator for the next session, talking about discovering niche opportunities for growth, because talking about, going back to the first session, what you guys were talking about earlier today, decoding the future of tourism. What can we expect moving forward as the industry recovers from the pandemic? And for this next session, for the next 2 hours, we'll be talking about a specific type of potential for growth in the industry, particularly niche tourism. Now, niche tourism isn't exactly new. We'll be talking about, niche tourism and how it's grown in popularity a lot more in recent years. And this growth is partly owed to the way in which we have changed, how we have transformed as consumers. We've grown more sophisticated in our wants, our needs, and with this, sometimes the one-size-fits-all package just doesn't really suit us anymore. And we're very lucky today because we'll be able to hear about the various wide range of niche opportunities in tourism from our lineup of experts and speakers, industry players today. So without further ado, I'd like to invite our speakers to briefly introduce themselves, talk a little bit about what you do so that our audience is able to understand where you're coming from. I'd like to start off with Jane Lim.
Hello. Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me here today. It's a great honor to be at this event. I am Jane Lim from TripAdvisor, VP of Global Markets, basically part of our B2C marketing team. So, anything in terms of marketing to our non-US consumers, growing our non-US international consumer base, that's something I look after. And me and my team, we are based in Singapore.
All right, thank you, Jane and Arifa.
Hello, Assalamualaikum. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Arifa. I'm from the Malaysia Digital Economy Corporation, in short MDEC. We are a public company, government agency under the purview of Ministry of Communications and Multimedia of Malaysia, and I head the Malaysia Digital Nomad Department. So we have a new initiative, which I will be talking about it in a short while. Thank you.
Thank you. And up next, we have Mr. Yusno.
Hello. Assalamualaikum. Very good afternoon, everyone. My name is Yusno. I'm CEO and founder of Evanesys. We are based in KL. All right. I'm a tech person. So what we do is we build event apps for the travel, hospitality, and even tourism industry. So we'll be sharing more with you on the topic that is very hyped nowadays. It is called Metaverse. So speak to you shortly. Thanks.
The new kid on the block talking about the metaverse. I think you'll need to move your mic a little bit further away from yourself. So next we have Dr. Laszlo, if you will.
Because it's moving, is it?
Good afternoon. Is it working?
No,
It's
able to
working.
hear the microphone?
Yeah, good afternoon. Hope you had a good lunch. I'm Laszlo Puszkar, and we have been working with governments, regional bodies, and private investors when they want to be inspired in terms of medical wellness or well-being related service development.
Thank you. Dr. Amran?
Assalamualaikum and very good afternoon. My name is Amran. I'm a professor in tourism planning at University Technology Malaysia, and I specialize in tourism policy planning and the interface between tourism and conservation. So I was privileged to be the lead consultant for our Malaysia's national ecotourism plan and the national tourism policy. And I've been researching community-based tourism for, I think, more than 20 years. Thank you.
And last but not least, Dr. McLaren.
Thank you, moderator. Assalamualaikum, a very good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is McLaren Lakim. I am the director of Sabah Parks. I will share the perspective of Sabah Parks in relation to the ecotourism. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So now that we know a little bit about our speakers today, obviously we want to know what they want to be talking about, what exactly do each of their areas have to offer in terms of niche opportunities for growth in tourism. But before we begin, I'd like to explain a little bit about the flow of today's session, which might be a little bit different. So this time around, we want to be listening to all the presenters or the speakers. We'll have about 15 minutes for each speaker, and in between, we'll have a little bit of Q&A, just between myself and the speaker, and then we'll leave the Q&A towards the end of the session. Hopefully we'll have plenty of time for that. So please leave your questions either on the Slido link provided. I believe the code is WTC 2022 2022. So leave your questions there and we'll be able to answer some of your questions towards the end, or you can head up to the mic that are set up in front. So without further ado, we'd like to start off our dialogue for this hour with Ms. Jane Lim.
Thank you everyone. I may stand up occasionally so I can see the stats because there's a lot of data to share with you guys today. All right, first off, I think you guys know me already. Just to repeat, I am VP of TripAdvisor's Global Markets Operation. I also am the APAC lead for business operations and strategy in the region. Oops, an error exists on this page. Okay, all right. First, a very quick introduction for those of you who don't know. Who is TripAdvisor? What type of company are we? First off, we believe there's good out there. It's not showing on the screen, but we believe there's good out there. So that's kind of our company motto, our belief. And we are committed to making a difference. So a couple of things as we think about, what are the growth opportunities for travel? I think it's about reframing what do we think travel is. And so I want to start with sharing with you guys today what we believe travel is as a company. So we believe travel is exploring new flavors, styles, and trends, and new ways of living. It's about connecting with people you love and with people you've never met before. It's about discovering faraway destinations as well as your own backyard. So travel is not just about a faraway trip, it's something new that you can discover every day. It's about stepping out of your comfort zone and into new cultures. And I will go into this in more detail today. It's about experiences that define who you are as a person. And I think as we think about marketing to the younger generation, I think, they are forming their identity. Travel is part of their experience, their life experience, and we want to make sure that, as we grow our companies, as we grow our brand stories are aligned with how consumers want to shape their identity. All right, so what is TripAdvisor? I hope everyone in the audience has heard of us before, but we are the world's largest travel guidance platform. I think earlier in the year, or maybe late last year, we hit this kind of seminal landmark. We currently have 1 billion reviews and moments, ranging from recommendations to pictures to memories. We have 215 million real traveler photos on our site, and 8 million listings globally that span accommodations, airlines, restaurants, cruises, experiences, and attractions. And who's on our platform? We've done obviously quite a lot of studies and research, and our travelers are socially conscious explorers. They over-index on folks that like to explore the world. They over-index on folks who are interested in helping the environment, and they also over-index on folks who are interested in other cultures and countries. And a bit about our audience. All right, okay, so coming into the topic today, what is the growth opportunity out there? What is it that we are seeing? We think and we see that life is all about experiences. And I think this sentiment was, particularly kind of brought on because of the pandemic. After years of being pent up at home, consumers around the world are yearning for new experiences that don't have to be far away as they cope with their new reality. The desire for escapism and the need to unwind continues to grow, both home and abroad. There is no better way than travel to create these memorable moments, whether through the relaxation of the great outdoors, the thrill of an amusement park, the beauty of a local museum, the enrichment of a cultural tour, or the energy of a live music show. All right, so that's really what we've found, both in terms of our site data as well as consumer research. We find that consumers now are seeking experiential and immersive vacations. And I apologize in advance. This 15 minutes of mine is really going to be a data overload, so just take what you can with you. So sharing some stats, 80% of travelers would visit local landmarks or cultural attractions. 73% of future travelers prioritize having new experiences. 44% consider visiting specific attractions or attending specific events important to their next vacation. And that means the experience sometimes now guides the destination choice, not necessarily destination first and then plan it afterwards. And lastly, 34% are planning cultural or sighting trips this winter, which is the #1 type of trip being planned right now. And what does this mean? Like, what do all those insights on the prior slide mean? What does that actually translate to? It means that consumers today are booking experiences both in advance and while on vacation. So 38% of TripAdvisor users traveling this winter booked on-trip activities ahead of their trip. And that means a lot more also booked on-trip. So if folks are already in destination, it's also a great time to reach out to them and say, hey, come take a cooking class with me, for instance. And 146% more traffic from TripAdvisor users than the next closest competitor when Googling things to do near me. So we are a platform that users certainly come to when they figure out what to do. And what are they looking for? When they search, when they Google, when they come to us, when they come to TripAdvisor. They're looking for guidance. 56% of travelers say quality online reviews are extremely important when making booking decisions. Folks are looking for social proof. They're looking for reviews, for real photos from people who have been there before that gives them the assurance to go ahead with their decision. All right, so yeah, okay, we are the ultimate destination for attractions. So we do have all types of attractions on our platform, which I will go into. So what do people look for when they search for things to do? They can find outdoor nature and park listings, tour listings, museum listings, theater and concert listings, theme park listings. These are just a few of the largest categories. And of course, we do have Traveler's Choice, which helps our consumers further discern, okay, what kind of booking decision should they make. All right, getting a little bit deeper into the data, when we say, hey, travel is all about experiences, it's all about an immersive trip, what is it that people are actually going for? So through the pandemic, we did see a massive rise in demand for outdoor activities. However, now that we are coming to, I won't say the new normal, but hey, we're starting to live with the way things are, we actually see outdoors dropping in share. And what is rising in terms of share of experiences are shopping. And it's interesting, right? We think shopping is just an Asian thing. Not really. This is global. This is based on global data. Everyone wants to shop. So shopping, tours, sites and landmarks, these are all experience categories which we see growing share on our site. And just to share with you the whole list, it's also, experiences also spans cultural sites, museums, spas, performances at concerts, casinos and gambling, amusement parks, zoos and aquariums, etc. Bars, clubs, and nightlife, food and drink as well. And food and drink is actually a pretty important part of a traveler's trip, as I'll share next. Okay, just to flesh this out a bit more, what do these attractions mean? What do experiences mean? Where are people actually going? So these are the top 5 attractions that we see globally. Eiffel Tower, Colosseum, Harry Potter tour, very popular, luxury canal tour in Amsterdam, and the Louvre. And in this region, we see Universal Studios Japan as being the top attraction in the region. I'm going to mispronounce it. Hulto Pool Hanging Bridge in India. So please correct me if I'm wrong. Tirumala Temple, Chatuchak Weekend Market. Anyone who has been to Bangkok, I'm sure has been there. And Universal Studios in Singapore. All right, so what next? So that was a deep dive into experiences. Now I'm going to zoom out a little bit and share with you what we see are global trends for Q4. All right, so travel still remains the top priority this winter holiday season. Of the consumers we surveyed, 66% of respondents plan on traveling this holiday season, which is up a lot compared to last year. So compared to last year, this is up by 17%. So travel intent is growing. This is the right time to influence prospective travelers, as 7 in 10 respondents have not yet booked holiday travel. However, I will caveat, this survey was done, I think, about 1.5 months ago. So I think right now is about the tail end of reaching out to folks who want to travel this holiday season. What I will share, though, if you're obviously planning ahead, is that we notice on our site, people tend to book or plan for next year's travel during the travel season. So actually, the time between, and it's not on slides, but I'll share it, the time between Christmas and early Jan, first week of Jan, is when we really see a spike of demand on our platform, because that's when I think people have downtime and they start thinking about, hey, what are my travel plans for 2023? So something to take note of. All right, this is just a breakdown of timing in terms of when folks plan their holiday travel. And it ranges, right? So some folks plan way in advance, some folks plan super last minute, but of course, I think it depends on where they plan to travel. What we do notice is that for international trips, where people are, traveling further, the booking window is now longer compared to pre-pandemic. But now, obviously, local travel, domestic travel is on the rise, and those have shorter booking windows. Yep, okay, so going right into that, 60% of our users are planning to travel domestically, 28% are planning to travel locally, which means, hey, it's a good chance for a lot of last-minute spontaneous travel, and 36% are planning to travel internationally, which is up 17% compared to last year. All right, a bit more data. So thinking about your holiday travel this season, which of the following do you plan to do? I think taking a trip with family, I think that's always a common thing, but I think even more so. Visiting friends, going to a destination to visit family and friends is also a key common trip that we see. I do want to highlight again the local opportunity. 23% say staying local and spending time with family nearby. And some obviously say, hey, I'll just spend time where I am. And then some are solo trip. Solo travel is also coming back. 16% take a trip alone. A breakdown of how many trips people want to go on. It's not just one trip. Maybe for most of us, very busy, we can only do one trip this winter. But some folks are actually going to plan 4 or 5 trips, or even 5+ trips. Maybe these are the young ones. All right, I did mention I was going to talk about the importance of restaurants and food and drink. And what we find is that, food, again, we think maybe it's just an Asian thing, but not really. This is global. Everyone likes food. Maybe it's becoming more and more important. But 50% of users, as they think about their next big trip, they do want to plan around food. And what is available. So again, thinking about how you appeal to users out there as they think about, hey, where should I go to in 2023? I think highlighting local cuisine, must-try dishes, very appealing, very important. And then a further breakdown. I also want to highlight shopping again. 38%, do care about shopping, even when season sales are happening. So again, I think, sale periods do differ by market. They differ by country. Something to think about when we think about reaching to our global audience. All right. What is shaping booking preferences? I think this is no surprise again. Value for money. Value for money is the top choice. However, I do want to highlight that value is not just about price. There's a lot of ways to creatively deliver value to your customer, especially if you know them better. One thing we really lean into, I think, at TripAdvisor is data. We're investing in data in a big way. We're trying to create a personalized experience for our users. But this goes for, I think, any company out there. The more you know your users, the more you can deliver value to them. And that value doesn't necessarily need to be, very expensive to you. I'll give you an example. I have a young daughter, and I'm traveling with her. And I can tell you, I would love to stay at a hotel which tells me that they can give me hey, steamed broccoli for free, which doesn't come at a cost, right, to the restaurant if you have to the hotel if you have a restaurant in-house. But hey, if you're traveling with young kids, you want to know that you can get steamed broccoli anywhere, right? So that's just one example of hey, if you know your customer, you can deliver value to them, not at a great cost. All right, what else post-pandemic? I think this maybe is not new, but maybe the importance needs to be highlighted. 62% think flexible cancellation policies are more important than they were in 2019. I think flexible cancellation is almost unexpected now. If you don't have it, it's
something's a bit off. 51% do think that taking the time to plan trips now is more important than it was in 2019. I think there's a bit of a, post-pandemic, I want to experience life to the fullest, and therefore I think when it comes to longer trips, there is more planning involved to make sure that they're really maximizing their time. And importance of travel insurance as well, that's becoming more important. All right, so when it comes to selecting airlines, I think similar, best pricing, flexible cancellation are the key factors. Okay, I am reaching the end of my kind of data overload. Last thing I think on top of everyone's minds is impact of inflation, potential recession, political unrest. So what's the world feeling? I think the good thing to note is that even though obviously most people are worried about inflation, they are worried about having tighter budgets. 80% of folks out there are still going to save and they are still going to travel. However, their travel plans may be affected because obviously they have tighter budgets. And so, yeah, almost all respondents say inflation will impact travel, although they still will travel. And so what that means is they will spend more time looking for budget travel options. They will still travel, but maybe take less trips or shorter trips. And hey, maybe they may think about slightly cheaper accommodations. Okay, and that's it. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Let's have a round of applause for Jane. I think a lot of what you were saying about, the most typical options that are being looked out for by your users, shopping, food, that applies to myself as well. And I think when we're looking at those things that are the top-rated search options, that's, I think, what's mostly typically associated with traveling, right? Shopping and food, sightseeing and whatnot. But, we'll be hearing up next about digital nomads, about the metaverse, about community-based tourism, more niche areas. Would you happen to have any insights on more niche activities in traveling, just briefly?
Well, I guess yes and no, in that there's like too much data on our platform that I can't say. We definitely cater to the mainstream as well as the niche. But what I will say is that we are increasingly trying to surface interest to our we're trying to surface relevant things to our users based on their interests. So for instance, if we detect that someone, for instance, is, like I said, maybe I'm like, in the family mode right now, traveling with children, then we try to surface attractions, hotels, listings.
Steamed broccoli.
Exactly, steamed broccoli, maybe it's like that's a search term, that's a trending search term, steamed broccoli, if it's like, if I'm trying to target family-friendly, I'm trying to promote family-friendly listings to a family-oriented traveler. So yeah, I guess that doesn't quite answer your question in terms of like, are there certain niche things at play? Yeah. Apologies.
No worries. So thanks, Jane. I think we're able to have a bigger understanding, the bigger picture of what's going on in the industry right now. But we want to get a little specific, and I want to start off with one of the biggest sectors of niche tourism right now, especially since working has become a lot more flexible since the pandemic. We want to talk about digital nomads. Obviously, something very relevant in the Southeast Asian market. So without further ado, Arifa, have a round of applause.
Thank you. Okay. Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Again, how's everyone doing? Good. I hope you guys are not sleepy after the very scrumptious lunch served by our host today. So let me take you through our new program from Malaysia. It is called Rantau. DE stands for Digital Economy. Rantau means travel in Malay. And this is an initiative that we've started this year. It is a Budget 2022 initiative. It was announced last year in October, and my team and I, we've worked really hard to put things together, and we have recently launched 3 locations in Malaysia, which are locations suited for digital nomads. Okay, so but before we go there, let me just have a quick brief about what is Malaysia Digital Economy Corporation. So MDEC, we are a government agency. under the Ministry of Communications and Multimedia of Malaysia. In the early years, we've been around for 26 years. So we were set up in 1996. We were focused on putting together the Multimedia Super Corridor initiative, making sure that Malaysia has the internet and telecommunications infrastructure to bring the country to where we are today. And of course, in terms of GDP contribution, digital economy contributes to over 22% to the Malaysian GDP. And we aim to contribute more than 25% by 2025. And of course, recently, this year, to remain relevant to the current situation, we have rebranded our initiative and we've launched Malaysia Digital with the tagline Think Possible. So this is to encourage the people, the businesses to be part of digital economy revolution. We want to accelerate the adoption of digital amongst the Malaysian people as well as Malaysian businesses. We want to grow local tech companies, and we want to also attract high-value investments when it comes to digital investments. So at MDEC, we have identified 9 promoted sector areas, and one of them, as you can see on the slide, is actually digital tourism. So we will look into this now, and my team and I are now in charge of the digital tourism promoted sector. And of course, whatever that we're doing, it's always underpinned by the tech enablers, the advancements of technology, and how the technology can actually help the relevant industries. I think for this one, it's just sharing with everybody about what is our tourism sector GDP, how it is like now, and how it has been very affected by COVID. And I think the speakers from the earlier session have actually covered this in great detail. So let's look at the opportunity. So as much as MDEC is recognizing the impact of COVID on the tourism sector, we also have been noticing the opportunity in terms of digital nomad trend. So digital nomads, can I see a show of hand if anybody knows what is digital nomad? And if you are one, can I see a show of hands? Whether you are a digital freelancer or remote worker. Okay, I don't see any hands. Okay, so maybe 2, 3. Okay, great. Okay, so digital nomads basically are professionals who use technology to work remotely, and then they work from various locations, moving from one location to another. There are 35 million of them worldwide, and this number is projected to be around 1 billion by 2035. And then, as you can see from the slides, Southeast Asia is one of the most popular region for nomads, coming after Mexico and Colombia, the Latin American countries. So who are digital nomads? So majority of them are digital freelancers, independent contractors, and about 17% of them are remote workers. But when you look at remote workers are proper employees employed by a company, but they're not required to come to the office and work. So this number is 17%, but since the pandemic, the growth has been exponential, especially in the States. It's like over 200%. And you can see the remote working trend is starting to grow here in this region. Even in Japan, a traditional market, it's also starting to see growth in remote working, as well as Malaysia. On average, digital nomads earn about $2,000 every month, and most of them are in the IT and digital domain. 80% of them will stay in one place between 3 to 9 months. So they don't really travel very fast, so we can consider them as slow travelers, which are very good for each of the locations that they are staying at. And they actually spend over 60% of their income locally, wherever they are, and especially on accommodation, food, and transportation. And of course, they require to work in spaces with other people for mental health and social health reasons. Okay. So at the same time, we know that Malaysia has its strong and unique offerings. We are rich in culture, very diverse in arts and heritage. We are actually a very digital nomad friendly country. We have build a robust tech ecosystem and community. And then, of course, we have been identified as one of the country most underrated by digital nomads, because we have affordable living, we have high quality of lifestyle, and we are relatively a safe country. So this is our strong and unique offering, and putting this all together, trying to leverage on the opportunity that we have at hand, we put together this program. Of course, the first objective of Dirantau is to make Malaysia the preferred digital nomad hub in this region. We want to promote the mobility of digital professionals throughout the country, and then, of course, accelerate digital adoption and economic activities. So if you look at our target market, actually, we're just not focusing on the nomads themselves, which are the demand for tourism. We are also looking at the supply side. So looking at accommodation owners and operators, how we can elevate the status of these accommodations to be nomad ready, nomad friendly, no more just a place for them to rest and sleep. It is also a place for them to work and network. And then, of course, we look at, because we are MDEC, we are championing developing local tech companies. We want to have more industry players to be part of the program and take advantage of this new niche market and to grow their companies. So these are our offerings. First and foremost, we have a new Nomad Pass. All this while, in previous years, whenever we have digital nomads in Malaysia, they are here usually on tourist pass. So every 30 days or 90 days, they have to leave and come back. So that's the normal, usual behavior of a nomad. So we have, together with our Home Affairs Ministry, we've actually announced this new Nomad Pass, which will allow and recognize digital nomads to stay in Malaysia between 3 to 12 months, renewable for another year, and they can also bring their spouse and child or children. So that's our number one offering. Number two, we are also offering Dirantau Hub. So these are the accommodations that MDEC certifies to be fit for digital nomads. And then, of course, the third one is offering a whole supporting ecosystem that can support the lifestyle of digital nomads. So, who can join Dirantau? So, we are looking at both foreign and Malaysian nomads. We are looking at, again, freelancers and remote workers, especially in the IT and digital domain. So because we are a digital agency, digital economy agency, we focus on these professionals first. And then upon application to become a member or to receive the Nomad Pass, applicants need to show that they have an active project contract and their employment contract, it has to be active over 3 months. And then they can, for freelancers, they can have clienteles in Malaysia or from foreign. However, for remote workers, they need to be working with companies which are non-Malaysian based. We look at annual income for digital nomads who are earning over $24,000 a year. And this will allow them to be holding the professional visit pass. So there's a name for it, specific in Malay, which is Pas Lawatan Ikhtisas. This is the pass that will allow them to stay in Malaysia for 12 months. It's the same type of pass that is currently being used by researchers or sportsmen, performing artists, but we have actually created a new category to recognize digital nomads here in Malaysia. And the fee to apply for this is 1,000 ringgit, so that's about $200 plus for the main pass holder, which is actually one of the most attractive pass in this region. We are actually the cheapest. I think our colleague from Malaysia Airlines earlier mentioned about Thailand's initiative. So Thailand is offering a slightly longer type of pass, which is a 10-year pass, but they are targeting the more affluent market of the digital nomads, which are those earning $80,000 and above annual income. Okay, so this is the criteria where we actually assess accommodations for them to become Dirantau hubs. So we look at live criteria. First, we look at the lodging, whether it's a shared or self-contained facility. And then we look at internet, of course, because internet is the most important criteria for nomads to consider when they want to move from location to location. So minimum 30 meg for fixed broadband and whether they have free Wi-Fi. And then of course, vibrancy of livelihood, access to various services, various entertainment outlets or recreational facilities. And then of course, whether they have the ability to do engagement programs or engagement sessions, whether they can do induction programs and hosting of nomad gatherings. So to date, we have already certified 185 D-rental hubs. If you can see from the pictures, these are the on-ground activities that we've done over the last 3 months in Langkawi, targeting the small accommodation providers, the cottage industry people, having them to understand what is this concept of short stay, how they need to onboard their services onto an accommodation hosting platform, and how this can benefit their business in the long run. And the pictures at the bottom actually shows examples of D-rental hubs which we have certified. So we've also have a D-rental app, which is a mobile app exclusively for D-rental members. We actually have it in beta version now on both iOS and Android. This is where they get to access all the various services provided by our partners. Our partners here, as you can see, is for flight traveling, it's AirAsia. We have Grab for mobility. We have easybook.com for ground transportation. We have also Tapao Food, for example, which provides catered meals for digital nomads. So they can actually subscribe online and they can actually do scheduled meals on a daily basis. And then, of course, we have Host a Stay, Tour Plus, who are our accommodation hosting partners, including Airbnb. And then, of course, tourism-related services provided by Tour Plus and Local Local. I think Local Local is also here today. Rachel, I don't know whether she's here. Yes, she's there. Okay, so Local Local actually provides the virtual tour of Langkawi, one of the locations of D-Rantau. This is to help nomads to decide, to make their decision to actually move from one location to another and to come here in Malaysia. And then, of course, at the bottom there are supporting services like co-working spaces that we have in Jetpack, for example, is in Langkawi, the settlements in Penang. And then, of course, we have PayNet, which is the subsidiary of our central bank in charge of digital payments to help us enable accommodations which do not have cashless facilities, and we provide them with cashless facilities. So, in essence, this is what we are offering, and we're not just offering the pass. So if you're familiar with the Nomad Pass, I think globally there are over 40 countries already offering digital Nomad Pass. But only in Malaysia, we provide it as a whole program to make sure that everything is fully supported. And when we roll out in Penang and in Langkawi, we actually work closely with our state level government agency. For example, we work with Langkawi Development Authority, LADA, who's here today as well, to activate Langkawi as our nomad location, as well as with Digital Penang in Penang. So this is our locations of D-Rantau. We have launched Penang, Langkawi, and KL this year, and we have 6 more locations to launch in the coming years. And these locations are actually selected based on cities or locations frequented by digital nomads, and it's already been recorded on a nomad community platform. So if you look up nomadlist.com and you search Malaysia, you will find these 8 cities there. Each location has its own rating. So for example, KL is rated as number 21 out of 500 over locations. Penang 27, Langkawi around 300 range. So this is where we're coming in. And of course, we want to achieve SDG goals 8 and 11. We are looking at a contribution to the local economy of close to 5 billion by 2025, having 80,000 local and foreign digital nomads to be part of the program, and then of course having 30,000 accommodations certified as D-Rantau hubs. And that is it for me. The QR code here, if you can scan, it takes you straight to the microsite for D-Rantau. And if you have any questions, you can please just come and talk to me later on. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. So I just have two questions. First, where do I sign up? Because I see a lot of interesting locations there, even KK is included. But no, really, actually, I wanted to ask, how many applications have you received? When exactly was this launched, and how many applications have you received for
Okay,
the
so
pass?
we've actually launched the program in September, and then we opened the application for Nomad Pass 1st of October. And to date, we have over 3,500 applications in the pipeline. So the demand is
Both
there.
international and local?
International, only
Oh.
international. So locals are about 400. Yeah. And the demand is there, and we should be able to have the first batch of Nomad Pass holder by the end of the year.
What's the feedback like for the first few months?
Of course, when we launched the program, we received many inquiries from nomads themselves. And when we launched the program in Lanka, we actually brought some nomads who have been in Malaysia to join us, and they appreciate the work that we're doing. There were areas of our requirements that it was very difficult for them to meet, but because we worked together and we were able to be flexible enough and get the consent from Home Affairs Ministry to make tweaks to the requirements so that it can be fulfilled easier. So,
is there a demand for your hubs to be opened in more locations?
Yes, there are demands, especially in locations which are not identified yet. Like, for example, we've received requests for Terengganu, Kelantan, and of course Pahang as well. But we are looking into it, so hopefully next year we can announce new location as well.
All right, very interesting. Thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you, Naila.
Up next, we want to hear from the new kid on the block, because we've been hearing about overall traveling trends. We've been hearing about digital nomads, something that we're relatively familiar with. But we want to hear about the metaverse and how exactly do we travel in the metaverse. So I'd like to present our next speaker, Mr. Yusno, please.
Thank you, Naila. Assalamualaikum. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Very good afternoon. All right, we are in a tourism conference, right? So the mood must be really, really exciting, right? So it should not be down after lunch. So this would be something that I guess would be very interesting. So let me start with the question that I'm going to explore today. Should tourism go metaverse? So can I get a show of hands for those who say yes? Yes, it should go metaverse. All right. Can I get a show of hands who would say no? Tourism should not go metaverse. What about the rest? Are you guys in between? Or you guys have no idea what metaverse is all about? That would most probably be it, right? All right, so I have a short time to get you into the mood of metaverse. And I think the past 2 years have taught us a lot about learning new things. I'm trying to put things in a much simpler mode. So think of metaverse as your extended reality. So if this is our real world, this is the physical world that we are in, you have an alternate or a digital world. In a much simpler term, it is your virtual world, right? At the very basic level of metaverse. We are not there yet, because the ultimate universe or multiverse or metaverse that we are looking at is something where you are able to alternate between these two worlds easily. My name is Yusno. I've shared earlier about what I do. I'm very passionate in technology. This is basically my LinkedIn profile, so you can just add me. Quick one. So what we do, we have been in industry for the past 12 years. We build software as a service. So if you have received your invitations for this event, you would have most probably recognized Evanesys. Now, this is basically a trip, a backpacking trip, photos 21 years ago. This was in 2002, when I was a junior in college. I went for a 2-week backpacking trip in Europe. So at that point in time, I believe internet is there. but it is not as advanced as today, right? So we book our trip online, but the most interesting thing about this trip is that I still remember vividly that I was basically buying and carrying this book everywhere. It's like the Bible or the Quran, right? Where you would look into it to find your bed and breakfast, your interesting places to visit, right? And then you would find a phone booth and call. I'm pretty sure for those of you who are in the 40s, 50s would understand where I'm coming from. Now, fast forward to this day and age, right? So right before the pandemic, I went up to the Mount Kinabalu, took pictures. Last week, I was in Nia Cave, took pictures. And I realized how easy it is for us to book trips, right? We have Waze, Google Maps to direct us anywhere we want to go, outdoor, indoor, right? So this leads me to Metaverse as a tool to inspire travel and tours. Remember, it should not be a replacement, guys. So it should be something that inspires you to travel. So how does it work? So if you have seen or if you have done a lot of e-commerce shopping, you would normally like to try before you buy. So this is where you basically go into a digital or virtual world where you get to fully immerse yourself. But then again, it is not going to be exactly the same as the experience of being in that place. So it gives you more confidence, right? So I imagine if there is a metaverse for all the caves, Mulu, Nia, or whatever other caves that we have in Malaysia and other parts of the world, if I'm able to step into that digital metaverse, able to see the vastness, the actual size of that particular tourist destination, it will inspire me more to travel, you see. Of course, it is not exactly the same of being there, inhaling the air, right? The smell of the whatever it is that is in the caves, right? So it will give you a better desire to travel and visit these places. How many of you have heard of this Sharjah verse? Sharjah, you know, a city, the third most popular city in the UAE. So you have Dubai, Abu Dhabi, and Sharjah. So they have recently created and launched this first metaverse city. All right, I'm going to give you a quick video on that. Okay, so a lot of things can be done. So as you can see, it is actually trying to replicate the actual city, scale size, right? So imagine if you are able to create a KK-verse, right? Whatever city that you are in, a replica or a twin city, a digital twin of that city in the metaverse. So as I mentioned earlier, it should be an extension of tourism. It should not be a substitute. So we always feel technology will replace the actual thing. I do not think so. So a study done by Statista.com. So when people will ask, what would you do in metaverse, but not in real life, right? And as you can see, 38% of them said, I would most likely go do extreme sports in metaverse. The potential, right, for you to actually do skydiving, what else? Bungee jumping, paragliding, especially for those of you who might be afraid of doing it in real life. So imagine if you're going into an attraction and you're given these two choices. So those of you who really want to jump and feel how it is to skydive, go ahead, man. And the others who basically just want to get into the metaverse or in the virtual world, you have that option. So it should complement your physical travel and tour. Another study or another question that is being asked, reason for people joining the metaverse. As you can see, 48% say that the art and live entertainment will be another reason. So events in the virtual world is really shaping up to be the next big thing. I remember this morning we heard someone talking about space tourism, right? How many of us are lucky enough to travel to space right now? It is super expensive, right? And imagine if I were to offer that in the metaverse at a more affordable cost to the mass. This could be a game changer. In metaverse, there is this element that I say a must-have. So we cannot live without games in metaverse. Let me tell you why. In roughly 2 years, maybe less than 2 years, this industry, the metaverse industry, will be worth more than $1 trillion or roughly $1 trillion. It's a huge market, guys. This is something that we should all be looking at. And right now, the users of the metaverse, the majority, 51% of them, are aged 13 years and younger. These are basically our kids, right? So once they are out of their teens, right, going into the adulthood, going into the workforce, that would be roughly another 6, 7, or maybe 8 years. And if we are not looking into this now, we're going to basically lose this opportunity, the huge market that we're going to be able to explore and basically get more revenues from these markets that are available to us. And that is basically some of the numbers of time people spend on metaverse these days, but roughly an average of 2 hours every day. This is another thing that is being done by Marriott. So out of their Moxie brand, they integrated augmented reality. So imagine you are at the counter, you are able to create your avatar, right? And then there is an holographic projection where you are able to take selfie with your avatar. And then you go at the bar, you go into your room, you are able to basically do more exciting challenges. You will unlock new tasks. So you are gamifying the experience. And this is what we need to do in life. Because if you're just going to hotel to stay and then leave, right? I think the next generation, everything is going to change. And this would be the first step, right? Extended reality, incorporating augmented reality. Games is all about getting people to be on the platform as much time as possible. And normally gamers are the easiest to adapt and adopt metaverse. And do you know that the top 10 metaverse platforms right now, they are all games platforms? I'm pretty sure we have heard of Sandbox, Decentraland, Roblox, very famous, right? My daughter loves this game. Axie Infinity. So when you have games, you are getting people to basically interact. You're getting people to really do things on this platform. You're trading things, digital assets. You're talking about crypto, digital currency. You're talking about virtual tokens. You're even now talking about NFTs. It would take me another like half a day to basically tell you what NFT is all about. But this is something that is going to be very, very exciting in the near future. So when we are building metaverse for tourism, we should not be ignoring the fact that it has to incorporate this element of gamification. Now, I know we're going to have another session tomorrow on redefining tourism. So what I'm saying right now is that metaverse should redefine tourism, right? Because, I mean, technology is more than just what we have right now. I think technology can change totally the way we experience travel in the future. I'm pretty sure you have seen some of, this video. This is basically being deployed in Detroit Airport, right? It is quite viral. I'm going to run it quickly.
Welcome to the future here at the Detroit Airport. You scan your boarding pass, look up at a giant screen, and you see only your flight information, even how many minutes it'll take you to walk to your gate. But only you can see it. It doesn't matter if you're standing right next to one other person or 100. Each person only sees their own information. Minds blown.
It's otherworldly.
And I can't see a thing.
that is insane.
Can you read that for mommy at the top? What does it say?
Hello, George.
What?
No way, that's so cool. I can't see anything.
Like, I literally don't, how is that possible?
It's possible because of Albert Ng. Ng started developing his parallel reality technology in 2014.
Above our heads is a motion sensor that detects moving objects as they're walking around. It's non-biometric. It doesn't know anything about each of those objects that are walking around.
Pretty amazing. Congratulations on this.
It seems like a movie set in a slightly scary future where people's eyes identify them to advertisers on big screens. But this technology does not use your eyes or your face. The only thing that identifies you is the shape of your body.
That's remarkable that you're standing right next to me and you can't see that.
So even though the flight boards that exist today have the flight information, it's a list of 100 flights. It's on you to look through that flight information board to find your flight.
Ng says the technology is especially important.
This is a common problem, right? Whenever you go to airport, the first thing that we will go is to look up at the board and, oh, where is my flight, right? So at the end of the day, what you are doing is, as repeatedly mentioned by a lot of our panelists, is about having a better travel experiences. And do not forget that technology is going to move faster than you can imagine. You'll be able to create more job opportunities within the metaverse. So the earlier video that I showed for Sharjahverse, so it's not just going to be a virtual world where people can now have their replica, a digital twin of themselves, in the shops, in the museums, and that could be a job on its own. So you're creating more digital job opportunities. And you're going to take e-commerce right now to the next level, guys. It's all about enhancing the current way we are doing trade inside the metaverse that is built for travel and tourism. So this is basically the summary of my sharing today with regards to how metaverse could potentially disrupt how we view tourism. And I do hope that in 3 years' time, when we convene together again, there would be a WTC 2025 in metaverse, inshallah. Thank you very much.
Thank you. That was Yusno Yunos, CEO of Evenesis. Very interesting. And you couldn't see just now, but when you were asking, okay, who agrees whether tourism should go in the metaverse? And there were hands raised. And then when you asked no, I had my hand raised because I didn't think it was relevant. But I guess I was slightly convinced, especially when you said about trying out things like bungee jumping, say, in the metaverse, something that I would be scared of in real life. But one thing that was interesting was about cost, right? I'm assuming that's one of the more competitive advantages compared to, say, flying to space, something most of us can't afford to do in our lifetime. But what would you say, if it's already being offered in the market right now, traveling in the metaverse, what is the cost like?
There are 2 points of, the way we see virtual world nowadays, for operators, those who are actually building the metaverse, my advice is not to build it from scratch. There are a lot of other platforms that we can just ride on. Platforms like VR chat, where you can actually sign up for free and then start trying out those virtual worlds, and then you can always upgrade by paying some subscription fee. It's not expensive. It's about maybe $10 to $15 a month, those kind of thing. And this is the first step, right? And then you can build more things on top. Rather than engaging another IT provider to get you to build the infrastructure and everything, it would take you a lot of money. All right, just like what Sharjah Verse did. Actually, they were working with another IT company and they put in a lot of investment to build it to scale, you see. So to answer your question, I would say start small. And right now, a lot of things are available for free on the web. The things I mentioned earlier, Roblox, Decentraland, Sandbox. Just Google this up, sign up for free. I know you need time to get used to it in terms of looking at things in 3D world, but you can ask your kids, I mean our sons, our daughters, they would be able to make us be better in this world. So it's all about starting small, and then we can definitely grow from there.
All right, thanks. I'm sure you guys have plenty of questions about the metaverse, but we'll leave that to the end because I do want to invite our next speaker, moving from the metaverse, something unfamiliar, something very new, but we want to go back to I don't want to say the basics, but something we're all very familiar with, talking about the health and wellness industry in tourism. So without further ado, let's welcome Dr. Laszlo to the stage.
Thank you. Let me reflect to the previous speaker. You will not like it. I think the most sustainable tourism is being on Meta. You don't need to travel. You just send some money, watch some films, and you don't need to travel. So it's very sustainable, isn't it? I wouldn't recommend it, and I would like to have him having a heart-to-heart discussion with community-based tourism developers. How that's going to go. I would love to see on the fly on the wall, okay, to see that. And also, one more bad news for you. Sorry, that's just today. The 10th of December is the first World Digital Detox Day. Shall I explain why? No, I won't, but I think you know what it is. Anyway, thanks so much for having me, and I want to invite you to a little ride talking about anything to do with well-being, health, and anything related to that. Just referring very quickly, what we are talking about here is the combination of medical services and wellness services, as the path-making study by WTO and ETC back 4 years ago defined. These are the umbrella terminologies. You might find different things in different countries, but that's how we are looking at it. That you want to have as a primary motivation to do something about your health, whatever that means to you. I think what the World Health Organization suggests is that we should move from lifespan to health span. So we would need to look at how we live, not just how long we live, but whatever we live or how long we live, how we are going to do that. And I think it's a very important message here. And one more thing, talking about theories and concepts, the understanding of well-being as such. If you want to cut my presentation to 3 minutes, it will be your answer. Any activity we do that contributes to your well-being, that's fact. Anything you do, what you eat, how you sleep, where you go to work, if the weather is good or not, or you like it or not, it all contributes to your well-being one way or another. So if you want to cut it very short, this is the end. Because every activity does contribute to our well-being. Not necessarily the best way, but it certainly does. We have two ends of the well-being spectrum. One is the eudaimonic, and the other one is the hedonic, which in many languages, hedonism is not a positive term. It's very close to being selfish. It's not necessarily directly that, but often is very much related to it. Still, if we know what we like, then we're supposed to be pursuing that activity. Still, you can find lots of rather disturbing discussions and news around, such as the wellness scam. And you can look it up. There's amazing stories out there. Many of them have zero reference, or zero claim for anything real, but sounds good. And also one of is a local reference very recently, the fake traditional Chinese medicine wellness scam, which is halfway between medical services and wellness services. Why? Because this whole business is about hope. This is about self-understanding and improvement. So we're having a lot of different issues here, and that's what governments and governing bodies and policymakers really would need to kind of speed up a little, because we can see missing options. So when you look at the whole landscape, you have two ends of the spectrum, and the healthy services often, are you doing self-gifting? Not just shopping. Self-gifting, anyone? You doing self-gifting? That you give yourself a little gift. Why? Because it improves your psychological as well as social well-being. That's why you're doing it for. So that used to be the case, that these were the services that we were very happy to have at a resort, during a trip. We didn't necessarily look for it, but we were very happy to have it. For medical services, the things that you needed to do. Often you don't want to do medical services, you don't have to buy medical services because you want to avoid it, but you just really need to do it. Whereas the standard wellness services were the ones that you wanted to do it. What's changed post-COVID, that the healthy services moved to the want-to scenario. I don't just happy to have it, but I'm actually actively looking forward to it. But it's very complicated, just like this cabling system. Very complicated how we do this. One of the studies that we did a couple of years ago looked at the really deep triggers. What does make you look for and buy well-being improving services? And not surprisingly, especially post-COVID, distressing, recharging, and self-healing. This is the issues. You don't buy self-healing packages. It's not what you actually buy, but this is what makes you buy it, because you're interested for it. What makes life a little bit more complicated, I didn't want to ask in the morning from the speakers, I don't like global trends, because we don't live in global trends. You live in Kota Kinabalu. You work in Seoul. You work in, I don't know, London. And the trends may not apply to you, but you have other trends that apply to you locally and applies to the guest would come to your place. For example, just very briefly, the services and options that that study suggested for every single region, let alone talking about countries. And for example, just the Asia, Southeast Asia, what were the products and services that seem to be popular? It's not the same everywhere, as you can see it. Many of the services didn't even feature. These are all industry studies that we did, because we wanted to understand what works where, because not everything works everywhere. There's no such thing. I don't agree on that. We have a lot of gentlemen here in the room, so I thought this health, well-being issue is not a hot topic for men, typically, really isn't. So it should be. That's why we had started an initiative a couple of weeks ago, months ago more like, and there's a top-line studies. This is what makes men think of their own wellness. This is the distressing prevention of illnesses, relaxation, but they don't care about, pampering and spirituality or even escaping, although many packages, you can refer to it, is all about escaping. But men don't respond to that. They don't necessarily care, but they're interested in recharging. So when you have adaptive communication, you need to adapt accordingly, because they would happy to take the benefits, but they don't want to refer to it. Mental spaces, that's for you, mental spaces. That this is what we create, these mental spaces. That what we do in a hot spring scenario, vineyard, lavender field, hospital, wherever we are, doesn't matter. But unfortunately, that's what happens. You know the term destinasia? It's not Asia. There's destinasia. This is when you go to a place but you don't quite know why you're there, when you get there, because it was a cheap flight, and you didn't actually want to go there. So what we want to avoid is to get this situation of destinasia. So you need to understand what kind of demand can be created for whatever services you do, either in the happy to have now, we want to have healthy category, and also in the medical side and in the wellness side. Now we have a little bit of a deep dive here. Engagement levels are really every destination, you need to decide which engagement level you are at and which one you want to get into. Not everybody will be a health tourist, not everybody will be a wellness tourist or a medical tourist, no way. But you can always take your opportunity as accidental demand that you can create when people just, oh, that looks like a good deal, so do a checkup when you are in Busan, for the matter. Or you do a curiosity that sounds weird, this kind of ritual, cleansing ritual, for example. I would like to try it. Or you have a hybrid when a cultural visit becomes halfway a wellness visit as well, when you want to learn from certain rituals taking part. You know, we go to Canada, you want to go to a hot lodge, you need to be personally invited by the lead of the tribe. You can't just book a session. You need to be invited because it's part of the cultural experience. It's not a service that you book easily. Or you are dedicated, you have a 1-week yoga retreat in a beautiful beach. You know, Bali is half of the island is about all this. And of course, the colleague from Sunway, you can say that how strong they are in, for example, cancer treatments. These are the dedicated ones. And of course, lifestyle is mainly on wellness, because that's what I live. Digital nomads often very much close to this kind of category, that they want to go to Bali, they want to practice the yoga as well as want to do some work. But that's a lifestyle scenario. So which one, want to have number of guests, volumes, you had the discussion again in the morning, volumes, or you actually want to have spending, because that's a massive difference between the two in this business. Either you have the volumes or you have the spending. You don't necessarily have both. Right. Often colleagues tell me that, oh, but either you do wellness or medical, it has nothing to do with the other types of tourism. That's totally and utterly wrong. Any kind of activity, any kind of other types of tourism, such as the cultural one, the heritage one, the adventure one, can easily take on health services, medical services, and wellness services. It doesn't instantly translate guests to wellness tourists or medical tourists, but it helps to balance the market. You know the term imaginative hedonism? I know it's 2 in the afternoon and it's after lunch, so imaginative hedonism? No? That's something that doesn't necessarily exist just in your head. All right? What's this? Anyone? I know it's an unknown concept, having snow. I understand. But what's this? These people are practicing snoga, which is yoga in snow. Wellness? Yes. Fun? Absolutely. Would you try it? Very likely. Expensive? Not really. Just someone had to think of creating wellness, improving experiences. Well, I probably know exactly where that photo was made, but it's about landscapes. It's about getting contact with nature after COVID, being logged in. Now you are reconnecting with nature, reconnecting with yourself, reconnecting with space. It's very spiritual. Or you have just a floating experience in a hot spring, which you can actually do very close to KL, for example. I don't know how many of you have been to that lovely cave scenario, floating in the hot springs. Or sandscapes. When you have ginseng, if you go to South Korea, you mix the hot spring with ginseng because it has the necessary beneficial effect on your skin as well as on your psyche. So these are all wellness improving experiences. And this is what we need to really create, or dreamscapes if you have a lot of money. But it's all about money, really. Or, as an alternative, this is soundscape, because that tube is like an amplifier of sounds of nature. So you pay for the session being in the tube and enjoying the sounds of the nature around you. Can you do it at home? I'm absolutely sure you can't. But many of the people would happily pay a lot of money for something like that. Just experiencing nature in a very different way. You sell it as a wellness product, you may or you may not. But we as creators, we know how it works on me as a guest, what it does to me, physically as well as mentally, psychologically. This is a smart thing because it's a bed for your phone. Don't listen to me now. This is a thing for the phone, so the phone would need to sleep. So it's a little bed. Funnily, you would try the bed. I tell you, you would say, oh, that's cute. What's even smarter is him. You can rent that fish for the night in a hotel. Why? Because people know that you are lonely. And when you can have other services, but you can have a fish. And it makes you happy because you're responsible. You're caring after something. And you can tell your wife or husband that I had a fish, no one else, I had a fish. And you feel very happy in the morning when you say goodbye to that fish. But it's all about improving your wellness. It's not a wellness service, but it improves your wellness. All right, summarizing, we talk about luxury. I didn't want to overload the slides with arrows and things. But there's no such thing as luxury. We have so many different luxuries, depending on your segment, depending on the country, depending on the age group, depending on various other things. To some people, having a thermal experience in a thermal cave in Malaysia is absolute ultimate luxury. Some other people is going to be the 24-karat gold spa treatment. That's luxury. Of course, it's very expensive. So it depends. So I don't like to just have a general terminology as luxury because it all depends. In this business, health, it really is something that we can really work on. Is this luxury? Absolutely is to many people. To others, it's an everyday thing that I meet my friends in a hot spring in Daejeon in South Korea, out in the street, just enjoying it while we are sitting in the healing waters. We talked about regenerative travel, and I want to summarize because I think missed one part because if you ask me, it's double regeneration. Because health motivation regenerates the travelers as well, not just the destination. So I think I would advocate the double understanding. And really summarizing it, do your homework, governments, and allocate tasks and create the landscape, local landscape that can actually facilitate the development of these products. Why? And that's the bottom line here. Because everybody can create your well-being story. Every island, every destination, every brand, every country even. We did similar stuff for Costa Rica, now we're doing Abu Dhabi, then Jordan. Countries do want to look for these kind of unusual elements which you cannot take away to somewhere else because you need to experience it locally. And this is when, the metaverse is like, yeah, right. Can I please sit in the hot spring myself? You can't sit in the hot spring on metaverse. That's just not happening. And I do recommend to please check Iceland's mocking metaverse. Have you seen that advert? Iceland mocking metaverse? Absolutely fantastic. I just recommend for you too. It's fantastic. So what's your well-being story? Why? Because during pandemic, even watching a beaver eating cabbage decreased the stress level of the onlookers. You don't want to get there. You want to get somewhere beyond. And we have done a lot of work in, just check, you might find your own country's well-being approach listed on this table. You may not. Because we looked at 40-something well-being traditions all around the world, what people do to make them happier. Simple things, but to make them happier. This is absolutely fascinating. We can talk about that later. Because you might do this, which is very COVID-appliant, or you do this. Or you just do this. Of joy of missing out, not fear of missing out, joy of missing out. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Now, very interesting and a lot to try out. I think a lot has not been explored really in the health and wellness industry. I didn't think it was that broad. I mean, just renting fish, right? Who would have thought? But what was interesting how you said about the role that can be played by governments in creating a more conducive environment, conducive landscape for the health and wellness industry. What exactly can be done even more, especially looking at Malaysia? We know Malaysia is one of the more popular spots for health and wellness tourism. What more can be done?
I think that governments, even local governments, what they really need to do is to create guidance for developers, operators. What would be the local asset that you can incorporate into your new offerings that makes guests feel better or make happier, and it's very local. Developers may have no idea about what's really locally available. So creating those development guides, marketing guides, product guides, these are the ones that can be the go-to resources to any developer. So, oh, thanks God, someone made this. Fantastic. I don't need to speak to 27 different researchers and museologists and whoever it is, but it's all here. All I need to do is to adapt to my own brand and business, and I can create something which actually is very local, rooted deeply locally, and make the destination as well as my offers more competitive. So the guidance.
I want to ask a little bit about something that wasn't mentioned. I think it falls under the health and wellness category. It's something that gained a lot of traction recently in Southeast Asia and slightly controversial in Malaysia. It's cannabis tourism.
CBD.
That's gained a lot of traction, especially since Thailand has legalized it recently, and a lot of Southeast Asian countries are now discussing, Malaysia included, about the potential of cannabis tourism. What would you have to say about that, the future of cannabis tourism?
If most countries, permitted, there wouldn't be. As simple as that. Since you can't do it somewhere else, therefore you go other place where you can. If you have it agreed or provided, of course it's controlled, because it's not necessarily a free thing, although you cannot be addicted to it, then it loses its grounds, because you do it here, but it's same as with IVF, same with various other interventions, that you can't do it somewhere else, so you travel to do it in another place, which is good for the place where you go to, but it can create even more issues. So it's a moral, legal, ethical, business, religious, all sort of issues. So it's a very sensitive topic.
That needs a whole other session, doesn't it? But I do want to move on to our next speaker. But before that, I'd just like to remind you that we do have some time for a Q&A session towards the end of our session. So if you'd like to leave some questions, you can head on to our Slido link. You can just head on to slido.com and enter in the code WTC, all caps, WTC 2022-2022. Leave your questions in there. I'll be able to have a look and pick some of your questions towards the end, or you can just come up to the mic stands in front. So we have some time now for our final two speakers. I'd like to invite Dr. Amran Hamzah from University Technology Malaysia to share a little bit about community-based tourism. So let's invite Dr. Amran to the stage.
Thank you, Naila. We used to bump into each other only during weddings past few weeks. Thank you to the organizer for having me. And first of all, I would like to thank Miso Walai Homestay because I'm using their case study because of their generosity. I've been able to study community-based tourism in Miso Walai Homestay for the past 17 years. And what I'm going to share with you are really the experience at Miso Walai Homestay. And I think they are here today, Jai, the executive, and also they are at level 2 if you do want to visit them over the next 2 days. So I've been given this topic, regenerative community-based tourism. And just to start with, let me give you a very simple definition of regenerative tourism. It is a form of tourism that aims to restore the harm that our system has already done to the natural world, and by using nature's principles to create the conditions of life to flourish. This is a post-pandemic form of tourism. It's the way of building better, building more sustainably, and the guiding principles of regenerative tourism, there are 5. One is that you should center the community needs first. You should create the sense of place in that particular destination that surrounding communities, businesses can relate to. You should improve ecosystem integrity and biodiversity, embrace diverse and inclusive business models, These should be collaborative business models and develop transparent governance models, and finally, enhance regenerative partnerships. So how do you translate this very fuzzy, very conceptual and abstract model, which has not been really tested out in the real world? This is a new idea that came out of the pandemic as we recover from the pandemic. So I'm going to try to translate it and cascade this idea and see how it can fit into at the destination level. And I'm using community-based tourism at a place where I'm very familiar, which is the Misowalai homestay. Before that, I would like to show you where it is. We are here in Kota Kinabalu. If you take a 1-hour flight to Sandakan, and in less than 2 hours, we should be at Kinabatangan homestay. Misowalai homestay is along the longest river in Sabah, which is the Kinabatangan River. Sandakan is the gateway town where you have ecotourism attractions. So why is the lower Kinabatangan very famous? That it attracts tourists from all over the world. They don't mind paying good money to come to go to the Kinabatangan because it is a biodiversity hotspot with, where you can see pygmy elephants, proboscis monkeys, and of course the orangutan and much more. And this is where the Misowalai homestay is very well positioned as a gateway to the wildlife tourism in the Kinabatangan. In actual fact, Misowalai homestay started off poorly because they were cutting down the forest. They were hunting, helping the restaurants to hunt bushmeat until the government declared the Lower Kinabatangan Wildlife Sanctuary, and then they were asked to plant cocoa, and the prices went down, and I think many of them then went into poverty. So WWF Norway in 1996 came up with this idea of developing community-based ecotourism, and it wasn't easy for the first 3 years. They had to spend a lot of time convincing the locals that it's a good way of earning sustainable livelihood. They didn't like the idea that they had to spend 3 years learning, rather than receiving tourists. But they persevered, and before the pandemic, I think Misowalai homestay is one of the top 3 performing homestays in the country. That is a picture of what they were in 1996. So it has been a 25 years journey, and you can see that in 1996, this was the office that they had. A simple, plank was used as a table, and this is where, in 2016, they built their office come training center. It's just like any other tour operator in Kuala Lumpur or even Kota Kinabalu. So this is where they are. They have reached this level. And let's hear this young guide from this village, how difficult or easy it was to start it.
Wildlife di sana lah. So kebanyakan orang kampung memburu kan. So dorang tidak suka yang menghalang dorang punya activities. Kita ada pertimbangan, kita ada cara untuk bercakap. Kalau buat begini bagus buat macam ni. So it takes so long, tapi it's changing. Sekarang dia tidak pergi memburu, tidak mau buat yang dia lagi support lah.
So in terms of economic benefits, this is the figures that I got from COPEL. Prior to the pandemic, up to 2018-19, they had reached tourist arrivals of more than 5,000 tourists per year, and they were getting about 8,000 nights. And if you look at the income, so Misowalai had, before the pandemic, generated about 2.5 ringgit, which is a huge amount for a community-based tourism. And if you look at the blue, that is the income that they got from tourism, and the green is from conservation efforts. If you ask me, What is that dip? This was that coincided with the incursion at Lahad Datu, which caused the dip in 2015. But then everybody knows that then came the pandemic, and because Miso Walai Homestay totally dependent on international tourists, there were hardly any income from tourism. But now they are firmly on the road to recovery. But I could see that even during the pandemic, I was doing fieldwork, and post-pandemic, post-lockdown, that there are possibly some green shoots of regenerative tourism happening in Miso Walai Homestay. So I would like to unpack what are the lessons that we could learn from Miso Walai, and what are the critical success factors, which I have broken down into 7. So the first one is when they realized that they couldn't get any more income for that 2-year period. The KOPEL, Koperasi Pelancongan Kampung Batu Putih, decided that they had to find a way of getting income from other sources, and they were very agile. This is very key to their rebound, that the leadership was agile, and they had been doing conservation efforts, but then they decided to write to donors and applied for more funding, which they succeeded. And they saw that post-pandemic, there was lots of opportunities for green recovery fundings, UNDP having these funds, and many more international organizations. So they know how to write proposals, and this is number 1. And you can see that from 1996, Miso Walai Homestay had always carried out very systematic conservation programs. From number 1 to 7, they have forest restoration, lake restoration, right down to even wildlife monitoring. But during the lockdown, they even they wrote to donors, and they got more funding for biomass projects and also solar power project that enabled the Koperasi or the KOPEL to cushion the impact of COVID-19 and create income for their members. There are more than 300 members at KOPEL. Now, this is just a snapshot to show you how many trees they have planted since they started in 1996. So until last year, they had planted almost 400,000 trees. And more importantly is that the species that they have planted is not just 1 or 2 mono species. They have planted more than 167 species. Because many of the youth then were working for logging companies, cutting down the trees. So when they knew how to, they understood trees, they understood the way of taking care, and they have used their traditional knowledge now in a positive manner in terms of the tree planting. So this is the latest income. If you look at the blue, it is income from tourism. It has always been the major income. So conservation used to be about 20%, and it went down even. So when income from tourism almost stopped, so their income from conservation now has increased to 30% and growing. But then there is not enough land to create more nurseries for their plants. So there's already reached some kind of saturation points in terms of reforestation. But that shows how, if you are agile enough, to find ways of increasing the incomes, and that is how they can cushion the impact of COVID-19. The second critical success factor is that in 1995, they had planned their development in such a way that community forest restoration was always supposed to be a part of the unique selling proposition, the USP. And by doing so, many of the housewives were employed, and they created jobs and additional incomes. But not only that, they had created or increased the local capacity, the social capital for the housewives and the community in KOPEL to be able to carry out reforestation in the future. So having the capacity to do this is very essential to be able to support regenerative tourism. So this is a typical tree planting ceremony at any other homestay in Malaysia. So you do this actually on the last day, like a ceremony, and I feel that is a kind of environmental tokenism. You don't know whether your sapling that you have planted will die without water and so on. But in Misawalai, they have a very systematic reforestation program, starting from silviculture, and the tourists can stay for up to a month, and they can come back. And you can see that they are even empowered to co-manage a forest reserve that belongs to Sabah Forestry, the department, which is the Supu Pin. So that is an achievement that very few communities would be given this opportunity. So the third one is they, from the start, had established partnerships with volunteerism companies, international, Raleigh International, GVI, and also domestic international donors, American Forest, Regrow, Borneo, and that has given them, that network of international contacts for them to be able to secure grants, funds, and also the capacity to be able to attract volunteers from all over the world. So number 4, because of their capacity, because of their experience, they have been able to build a sort of trust and reputation. So Kopel, when they started, they were at the fringe, They were just a community-based tourism. The bigger boys along the Kematangan, used to bully them. That's another story. And then when they have shown that, they have achieved what is called a gold standard in community forest restoration. They are now, I would say, they are the gatekeeper if you want to carry out forest landscape restoration, which is along the Kinabatangan Corridor of Life, which is a Sabah state government's effort with WWF. They are the gatekeeper. They know, what to do. They know what species. So that is the trust and reputation that enable them to be given contracts to carry out restorations. Another critical success factor is how they have embraced citizen science. So many of the pioneer homestay operators, they only have up to primary 6 education. Some do not even complete primary 6. And yet, because Japanese universities approached them and they were trained on site, they were taken on for internships in Japan, they had been able to acquire skills to be able to carry out water quality monitoring, wildlife monitoring, and they've been using this in terms of their monitoring of their state of the environment. And the offspring of the pioneers, they have come back with degrees in environmental management, resource management, and they are now working with Kopel and doing things such as calculating carbon sequestration, which is very amazing for this community. The 6th is the intrinsic motivation. They have been able to develop an intrinsic motivation for environmental stewardship. So if you contrast it with the extrinsic, which is doing it for money, doing it for income, which is fine. Many of them they're still doing it. But slowly we have observed that they have also been able to develop this intrinsic, which is doing it because of their love for nature. Karsi is a 66-year-old lady who's still doing it, enjoys doing it, and that is her clan, so to speak, family, at the end of a hard day's work, replanting. And let us listen to what she has to say.
Kalau ada lagi kerja selama-lama, umurnya berapa? Saya 66. 66 steady istirahat. Bilang istirahat, saya yang mau kerja. Besar kalau saya diam di rumah, saya banyak penyakit. Kali kepala tak keluar, kalau di rumah, nggak ada kerja, limpah main telepon begini.
So that's Karsi, and there are many more Karsi in Misawalai Homestay. And finally, they have been able to embrace IT. There is I think, Eco Watcher based somewhere in Europe or in the US. They are doing this selling, adopting plants, trees all over the world, and they have set up partnership with Regrow Borneo through them. And for the next 3 years, the COPEL members who are involved in tree planting will get a fee every time there's a buyer, adopter, that adopts using the handphone. So I'm not so good on all these things. I understand it a bit, but this is a new avenue that is opening up, and this is very creative, very fun, innovative source of income. So the buyers and sponsors can track the amount of carbon that is being sequestered by their trees, and the locals are planting it and selling them online. And 10 years ago, I used to show this, and they used, based on the success of Misowalai, replanting in the year 2008 over a stretch of land along the riparian reserve of Kinabalu River. And then 2 years later, it has become, and again, the habitat for wildlife to flourish and excellent for wildlife tourism. But this is no longer important, because now people are looking at new success metrics. So carbon sequestration now as a way of combating climate change. So COPEL, with the young graduates from these universities now, are involved in calculating carbon. Not only that, they are trying to expand their restoration projects. There's no more land to plant, so they have developed partnership with the local oil palm plantations, pro bono, no fee. Those land that are very hardened because of the logging many years ago, that are not suitable for oil palms, are being replanted by COPEL. And what do they get in return? They could embark on the IoT selling of the trees that they have replanted. And this is something that is really helpful in mainstreaming community forest restoration in a bigger, in a wider context of climate change mitigation and adaptation. So this is final 2 slides. I think this is a very, very exciting opportunity using IoT. There are 3 prospects that I could see. One is they could entice the online sponsors to finally visit their trees in Misowalai. Number 2, if they don't want to, if their buyers don't want to take a flight to Misowalai, they can then buy more and more virtual tours, which could be produced by Misowalai Homestay and the young staff, or they can even compete against Eco Watcher and so on to produce their own apps so that they could get more income from these IoT sources. So let me conclude now by saying that Misowalai Homestay is the first village in Malaysia to have won the UNWTO Best Tourism Village in 2021, first and only. And they didn't win it because they were beautiful. I think they are the first to admit that they didn't win it because they are most beautiful kampong or the most picturesque kampong. You can see that they are very simple kampong. The road is still unpaved. I hope the agencies that have been promising them about a year ago would do their job quickly as possible. We don't want to see access road to the best tourism village in the world, full of potholes. But anyway, they won it because according to UNWTO, the best tourism village is not given to the most beautiful kampong, but the kampong that has used tourism as a very powerful economic driver. What they are offering is valuable lessons in perseverance, resilience, and innovation. And also, I think, is a pioneer in regenerative CBT. And finally, we are doing this study, it's APEC study, on rebuilding rural tourism in APEC economies by utilizing green recovery strategies, thanks to MOTAC and ITC. And hopefully, we are going to organize a workshop next May in Misowalai. If you want to know more about regenerative tourism, maybe you can come to that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Amran. Now, I do have one quick question, just talking about not exactly regenerative tourism, but going back to volunteer tourism. Because we know there's a bit of criticism against volunteer tourism. You mentioned about tokenism, right? That's in terms of planting trees. How far does it actually go in regenerating the ecosystem? But there's also the danger of tokenism in, say, tourists from more affluent, wealthy countries going to poorer communities, therefore maybe perpetuating the notion or a more exploitative relationship, this kind of perception that, poorer communities in the global south requiring the help of those more affluent and wealthy in the global north. So what do you have to say about this criticism, just quickly?
Thank you, Nella. We have also studied we surveyed volunteers. They have gone to Miso Walai, and they have been partly disappointed because they really wanted the locals to be involved in co-designing the volunteerism programs. When they came and they saw that the locals wanted them to be doing everything, like build a new hall or cut down, paint, student paint work. But what they were interested in is that have an engagement session. So the locals say, we would like us to be involved. This is what we would like to see, and how can you offer? So it's more like an exchange. So you're right. We have to be very careful that volunteerism can be also exploitative. There's a very, very slim occurrence of sexual abuse also in remote areas. But in Miso Walai, because of their long-standing relationship, they have been able to achieve some kind of co-design before. For example, when they built the Eco Lodge way back maybe 10 years ago, they was given this one, the budget from American Forests to build an Eco Lodge, but they did not use the contractors who can do it, let's say, within 18 months. So they invited Relay International and with their locals to build it themselves, design it, build it, and it took them 5 years and 7 years before it was open. But what happened is that Eco Lodge has become a symbol of the pride in the community, of their ownership. That is the kind of volunteerism that we would like to be replicated elsewhere. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Dr. Amran, for that. So before we move on to our final speaker of today's session, I just wanted to check in with you guys. How's everybody feeling? I know we're coming towards the end. Everyone's a little sleepy after lunch. So maybe I'd like to remind you guys to just, have a sip of water, have a little stretch, because we are going on towards the end. And we want to end it with a bang, obviously. And I also want to remind you guys that the Slido link for you guys to drop in your questions are still there. Just head on to slido.com and enter in WTC, all caps, and 2022. So WTC 2022. Just enter in your questions. We'll have a look, and we'll leave that for the Q&A to the end. So I hope you guys are ready for our final speaker. Yeah, all right, that's the spirit. So last but not least, while we're in the beautiful city of KK, we're surrounded by lush greenery, some of the best rainforests in the world. It'd be a shame, for us to not hear from a local talking about another area of niche tourism, which is nature-based tourism, adventure-based tourism. We'll be hearing from Dr. Maklarin Lakim, perhaps in an effort to convince some of you guys to extend your stay here or come back next time. So without further ado, our final speaker for today, Dr. Maklarin.
Thank you, Ms. Naila. Assalamualaikum and a very good morning, a very good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I will talk about adventure and nature-based tourism, the Sabah Pax perspective. We can also mention as a kind of, So I would like to share my experience on climbing Mount Kinabalu. And I would like to know how many of us here inside this room have climbed to the top of Mount Kinabalu. Please raise your hand, yeah? Oh, quite a lot, yeah. So congratulations to you and congratulations to all the audience because your ability to stay with us until the end of this presentation. I move forward. I have, as an overture, 30 years ago, I scaled the summit of Mount Kinabalu, the Lost Peak, for the first time. And I was amazed by its beauty. And after that moment, I climbed the Mount Kinabalu several times, this peak. You cannot see. So according to the IUCN, ecotourism, that I combine the adventure as well as the nature tourism, is an environmentally responsible travel that prioritizes conservation, leaves low visitor impact, and allows for socio-economic involvement of local people. So this is, in Sabah Parks, we adopt this concept or the meaning of ecotourism itself. So the contents of my slides will be like this. I use about 20 slides. I will move quite quickly. I've climbed the Mount Kinabalu, and then preserving Mount Kinabalu is the role of the Sabah Parks in the very beginning. Expansion of the parks, park strategic planning, adventure and nature-based tourism or ANN tourism, parks visitors figure, revenue issues and challenges, way forward, and to conclude. So anything about the adventure nature-based tourism is, I think, related to the beauty, purity, pristine, and priceless things that we can mention that nature can give to us. So Sabah Parks preserving Mount Kinabalu, I am happy to mention that here in this room I have my former chairman of the Sabah Parks Board, Dr. Sri Tunggu Zainal Adrian. He is the one who helped us actually from the beginning of the establishment of the parks in 1964, because we start the Sabah Parks with this Mount Kinabalu, this big boulder, the giant boulder, using the Parks Ordinance in 1964 during that time, but we have changed, amended many times, and currently we use the Parks Enactment 1984, amended in 2007. We are going to amend again because we need to reshape or to accommodate new things that surrounding us here today. So under this enactment, we established the Board of Trustees, a group of people, 10 people. I am the secretary of that board. And under that, the board is a policy maker. Anything that we suggest to them, they will make a policy, and the management of the park will implement all of that policy. So this is the chart of the Sabah Parks. We are under the Ministry of Tourism, Culture and Environment, State Agency of Sabah. We are a statutory body under the board, and our number is about 350 permanent staff and another 350 unpermanent staff. And all in all, we are about 700 personnel managing and manning all of the 9 parks throughout Sabah, including our park headquarters in Kota Kinabalu. So we have expanded the Mount Kinabalu into its food and sea bed alike over the last 58 years. We expand to the Tunku Abdul Rahman Park in 1974, the first marine park in Malaysia, followed by Turtle Islands Park in 1977, Pulau Tiga Park in 1978, Tower Hills Park in 1979, Crocker Ranch Park, Tun Sakaran Marine Park, Sipadan Island Park, and lastly, the Tun Mustafa Park in 2016. So this is the localities of the park. We have 3, the dark green area is the terrestrial park, surrounded with another 6 marine park surrounding the Sabah area. And we are very lucky because our sea is very diverse also in the name of South China Sea, Sulu Sea, as well as the Sulawesi Sea, well known for its very high biodiversity area on this earth. I used to call Sabah Parks as an amphibious agency because we playing in the sea as well as we playing on the top of mountain. We are very flexible, and we are happy with that because we can one day we can get to the top of Mount Kinabalu, the second day we submerge into the seabed of Sipadan Island. So we can imagine the experience, the original experience that we have and what Sabah can offer to all of us here. And currently Sabah Parks covers about 16.5% of Sabah area. So expansions of the parks actually continued until today, this moment, maybe tomorrow. So in our plan, we will gazette, we will preserve the Mantanani Island, the ex-Mammoth copper mine area in Ranau, on the foothill of Mount Kinabalu, the Double Bay in Lahadatu, Mengalum Island in Kota Kinabalu, as well as Ligitan Island in Simporna, close to Sipadan Island. So that we have also expanded the parks in terms of accolades. We got the UNESCO World Heritage Site in 2000, as well as ASEAN Park Heritage Park in 2004 for Mount Kinabalu, and UNESCO Main and Biosphere Reserve in 2014 for Crocker Range Park, as well as the Turtle Island Heritage Park for Turtle Islands in 1996, long time ago, a bilateral agreement between the Malaysia government with the Philippines government. And we are waiting for another accolades of UNESCO Global Geopark. Hopefully by the 2023, we'll get the Kinabalu Geopark UNESCO. So with that, we will get the triple crown of all the UNESCO prestigious accolades. So this is our strategic planning. Among other things, we have 7 long-term goals. But in terms of the nature tourism, it falls under the goal number 3, which is nature tourism hotspot, as well as we like to collect money, financially strong. And most important is the orange colored square, which is symbiotic harmony with stakeholders, and local people is our main stakeholders that we want to get them together with, developing together with the parks. So our vision is people of Sabah live in harmony with nature. We are about getting to that end, and we are close to the 2025, our target for the harmony with nature in Sabah. So preserving of nature via tourism is pivotal to our situation in terms of terrestrial park, because we create what we call recreation zone at each parks, and then we open that to the public, and we collect ticket by doing that, and we maintain like the facilities as well as the safety and security of our tourist visitors. And mind you, because we preserved the park since a long time ago, we still have this a very attractive wildlife, whether it's terrestrial or in the marine area. So preserving of nature via tourism, also we need to include the socio-economic opportunities for local communities, like what Prof. Amran has mentioned just now. So we are also on that direction. And a type of adventure, I don't have to clarify to you, you know that better than me, like from activities, climbing Mount Kinabalu as well as diving into Sipadan. And in between that, there is an opportunities, ample opportunities for us to do a joint venture business in the future. So this is our tourism statistics. Prior to the pandemic COVID, we were visited by annually about 1.7 million visitors annually throughout Sabah, our figure for Sabah Parks. And this is the Kinabalu Park tourism arrival, one of the most visited park in our area. But actually, we limit the number of the people because of the carrying capacity issues, especially when concerning the climbing to the top of Mount Kinabalu. But generally, this park receive about more than 0.7 million visitors annually. So in terms of tourism receipt, since the beginning of our strategic planning in 2015, we were quite good in terms of generating money, generating revenue, and we reduced our cost from the 2015 to 2019 prior to the pandemic, and we generated more than 72 million Malaysian ringgit during that time. But during the pandemic, we get down about 76%, I think. But we are now recovering, and we are happy that because of the pandemic, our PAX is recuperated, and we have the potential to attract more people. Start maybe like tomorrow. So this is our tourism receipt. All of the PAX is not equally collecting money, but we will distribute that money collected, especially at the PAC headquarters, to all of the PACs for the management as well as the protection of our PAC to maintain the beauty of nature inside that each PACs. So this is issues and challenges. I think we more or less know all of us know this, so I don't have to explain. But I think there is 5 top issues and challenges like natural disaster, affected by the climate change, cleanliness here and there. People awareness is still low, not only in Sabah, I think, probably in Malaysia as well as in the region of Southeast Asia, still the same. And issues of carrying capacity of parks, we like to limit that because we want to retain the high standard of our parks, as well as the cost of enforcement from the detrimental harvest, especially in marine area like fish bombing, which is quite difficult to get rid of. So that is our challenge. Probably we will use the kind of ICT or digitalization in the future, like what Mr. Yusno mentioned to us, for us to protect our parks, but we'll need big money for that. So the way forward, we have organized successfully the Asia Parks Congress under the IUCN. Last May, we were happy, and during that time, what we called Kota Kinabalu declaration was declared, and it contained about 6 working groups resolutions like a nature-based solution for health and well-being, governance of protected and conserved area, connectivity and transboundary, effective protected and conserved areas, economic and financial sustainability, urban conservation, and new generation call to action for nature and people. And Prof. Amran is one of our stalwart during this FPC2 IUCN. So to conclude, actually the end of our exploration will be arrived at the place where we begin, and to know that place for the first time. I think this is the core of the tourism and why we like to get back to the top of Mount Kinabalu, for example. And I get back to my earlier overture. Upon going down from the mountain, or facing up from the seabed, we will be tempted to climb or to dive again. And that is what Sabah natural beauty has to offer to us. And from the perspective of Sabah Parks, adventure and nature-based tourism is pivotal to the parks preservation, and the other way around, the vice versa. But from us, Sabah Parks will preserve all of these parks, global natural heritage of Sabah for the future generation, for all of us here, and for our enjoyment. I thank you, Ms. Doretta. Back to you.
Thank you so much, Dr. McLaren. I just have one question for you before we open our questions to the floor. Dr. McLaren, we want to look at Sabah's parks from a business perspective as well. How do you think local authorities can create more space for smaller industry players? Because some would argue that nature spots, even just looking at Sabah, we're seeing a lot of monopolies, some of the larger, say, lodging companies. And if we perhaps compare to how safaris are run in some African countries, they prefer it in that sense because there's a lot more control, right? You don't want a lot of activities going on in sensitive areas to preserve the wildlife, to preserve the ecosystem. So what do you have to say about that? Should there be more smaller industry players in sensitive areas in the wildlife, or should that be more controlled to, monopolies?
Yeah, thank you, Ms. Naila. Yeah, actually, when we get agreed to be the Kinabalu Geopark, for example, actually under the Geopark concept, we have three pillars, main pillars. One is conservation, the second is infrastructure development, and the third is the socioeconomic opportunities for the community. So with the adoption, we generally in Sabah, under the Sabah parks, the parks area we protect. We don't want anyone to harvest anything inside the park. But in the surrounding of the park, yes, we want to develop and help people to develop. Say, for example, the natural heritage inside the Kinabalu Park is a premium heritage. But in the surrounding of the park, we better to create socio-economic opportunities to the local community surrounding the park. And with that, when the surrounding community happy with their what we call the socio-economic gain, we will be happy because they will protect the park area. So we will be just sit like that and preserve the park quite very effectively. And this is the new concept, I think, under the geopark as well as under the community-based tourism introduced quite a long time ago, starting in 2018, if I'm not mistaken, by the Sabah Tourism Board. And we are on that direction, and we are happy with that. Back to you.
Thank you, Dr. McLaren. So with that, we wrap up our session for today. We've heard from all of our 6 speakers. Can we have a round of applause? And with that, it's time for our Q&A, and we've received a lot of interesting questions on our Slido, which is still open. If any of you are not so brave to come up to the mic stands in front, you can leave your questions on our Slido. Again, the code is WTC 2020-22. So I want to move on to the first question I found particularly interesting, having to do with the metaverse, because it's a very contentious subject, right? A lot of mixed reviews. I'm not fully convinced myself. I don't know if I want to jump off a cliff even in the metaverse. And this is another concern that someone has for you, Mr. Yusno. How do you reconcile the inefficiencies and high energy usage of the metaverse and blockchain technologies with sustainable tourism?
Okay, all right. Good question. First, I have to admit that if you are using metaverse on blockchain at the moment, you would be using a lot of energy, right? But bear in mind that metaverse can actually exist without blockchain, all right? So the virtual reality, the virtual world has been in existence even before blockchain. So they sit on your normal service. So if you are on a very sustainable sort of like servers where you're using solar, you're using wind, then it is very sustainable. But now with the inception of Web 3.0, you would want to link these two together, which is why I mentioned a bit about NFT, crypto, where you can do a lot of tradings inside the virtual world. So this is where the trade-off has to happen lah. So at the moment, I would say, yeah, you're going to use a lot of energy when you're putting metaverse on top of blockchain, which would not be very sustainable. But bear in mind that a lot of work has been put into increasing the efficiencies of the blockchains, the infrastructure that you are doing, just like in any other technologies, batteries on EVs, right? So that should not stop us from adopting or trying out or building more things on top of this platform.
All right, thank you. Next up, we have a question for Dr. Laszlo. Does healthcare travel tourism, or I believe that's grammatically incorrect. Is healthcare travel tourism a promising post-pandemic trend as travelers are more health conscious, especially having to do with wellness, mental health, and preventative care? What do you have to say about that?
I believe either you talk about the medical side or the wellness side or the holistic side or spiritual side. Most certainly is, as long as you can provide the evidence that whatever you are offering has the merit, it has the necessary success factors. So not just promises, promises, and promises. So it certainly is because what the data show, that people are more open to take on new information in terms of health / well-being / whatever you want, whatever terminology you want to use. So they're very open to look it up or to receive information. Many of them actually started to look for information. So to actually grab attention, that's a good moment. But you know, that's also a fashion item that can go out of fashion very quickly. It's like fast fashion. So you need to be real, any destination or company or hospital or whatever you are, that whatever you are promising or showing or offering has the necessary depth and merit and evidence, because that can be easily found out that it's all just fluff and without any evidence or merit. So the answer is yes, and that's why you have like MHTC working really hard, not even way before the pandemic, and gaining momentum, and many other countries are looking into it because even government bodies recognize that, yes, that is something here for us, but they're really just exploring how to exploit these opportunities, how to find that niche of the niche that they can really do well.
All right, thank you. I hope that answers your question. Before I move on to the next question on our Slido page, are there any questions from the floor? If you'd like to go up to the mic stand in front. If not, if you'd like to remain virtual and anonymous, please do so, no problem. In that case, I want to move on to the next question. This is for Arifa, having to do with the digital nomad sector. So the question is, to position Malaysia as the preferred digital nomad hub in ASEAN, is there a specific foreign or target market, say countries or nationalities, for the Dirantau program?
Okay, thank you for the question. If you look at the data of the 35 million digital nomads globally, actually Americans make up 51% of the total population. So there's Americans, British, Russians, and then some European countries. So we are not specifically targeting the top 5 of the digital nomad population, but we are targeting nomads who are currently in the countries within the region. So for example, we have partnership with AirAsia. So we leverage on their database of AirAsia app user in Indonesia, in Thailand, in Singapore to market the Dirantau program and provide options and alternatives for the nomads to actually consider coming and staying in Malaysia for a while.
I have a personal question myself. Not personal, but just a question. So with the Dirantau program, I guess you could kind of say you're regulating what's already been going on, right, with digital nomads. Would you say, or how would you find the sort of equilibrium or the balancing point to, one, regulate, but also at the same time encouraging and allowing access, because some could potentially see that as a barrier, right? They just want to continue what's been done before using the tourist pass and not having to sign up, you know, and potentially seeing that as layers of bureaucracy. How do you find that point?
Okay, so MDEC as a government agency, our role is to facilitate development of whichever sector that are impacted by the advancements of digital technology. So with Dirantau, it is a new program. It is a catalytic program that can actually create more advancements in the tourism sector when it comes to digital adoption and transformation. When you look at from the regulatory perspective. For example, we know that Malaysia all this while has been like a transit location. So people come to Malaysia 4 or 5 days and then they move to another country, right? So when we advocate digital nomadism, we not only advocate for professionals to consider working from anywhere, but we are also advocating more people to travel slowly. So travel slowly, they fly less, they use more local transportation, they get involved with the local community even more. So with Diranta, we actually have opportunities for these digital professionals to participate in the local startup community scene. So for example, in terms of product innovation, we are already working with accommodation providers to help them think about how can I improve my accommodation business better? I cannot just rely on, people staying 3 days in a week kind of thing. So we introduce them to the concept of long stays. So where you can offer 2 weeks, 1 month, monthly rental, monthly rate instead of daily rates. So that's an example. There's also work in the pipeline about how we want to diversify or innovate the tourism-based product to digital nomad market. So of course, let's say for example, when you are in Langkawi, so I have to quote Langkawi because we have quite a bit of work there done already. One of Langkawi's lowest point in the rating is actually there's not much to do in Langkawi for nomads especially. So you will finish all this island hopping, beach activities within a week. So what are you going to do in Langkawi for 1 month? So this is what we are working right now together with LADA, with locals, to actually add on new types of activities there. Also, we are looking at experience hosts. So for example, the local tour or local experience host can actually put up their product. So let's say I'm very good in making rendang and ketupat palas, right? So I want to offer this as a tourism activity to people who are staying in my locality area. So how do I do that? At the moment, there's no regulation looking at experience hosts. We are also looking at helping accommodation hosting platform involved in short-term rental accommodation. STRA is a serious issue here in Malaysia, and we are working together with all these platforms who are providing this. So many things that we're doing, but Diranta is just one impetus. We are starting it out, and we are actually working on it.
All right, thanks. Now, you mentioned a little bit about trends. I want to move on to the next question. It's not specifically directed to anyone, but I believe Jane could be in the right position to answer this, or if anyone else wants to chip in. Are we slowly moving into our old ways of managing tourism? Have we learned our lesson after COVID? And the person says we seem to have slowly returned to business as usual. What do you think?
Well, I think, the hospitality industry basically responds to demand. So to some extent, there is a return to normal ways because consumer behavior is, to some extent, returning to normal ways. But I do think some things have changed. Forever is like a long way, but I do think it's a permanent change in direction. So apart from, earlier I mentioned flexible cancellation, more attention to hygiene, I do think there's something, and I've been inspired by all speakers here talking about health and wellness, ecotourism, etc. There is going to be more focus, I think, going forward on sustainability. As I mentioned, the younger generation, they care about their identity. Travel is a big part of their identity. And so as we think about, impact on climate, ecotourism, I think there is a change, a shift that's happening that won't be reversed. And I think if you're an operator in this industry, that's something to think about. What is your brand story? Does it tie in with the values that youth have today? So I think that's some kind of permanent change. And by the way, I did want to answer the question you posed to me earlier in a better way. So I slacked my team. It's great. I have a team on demand. So, I did mention TripAdvisor as a mainstream platform, but we do have niche communities on our platform as well. Mostly they connect with each other on the forums. And so one pretty niche thing that we've noticed in terms of like a lot of growth in that community space is very related to what we've been discussing. It's called through hiking. Does anyone know what through hiking is? Yeah, I know, it's like super niche. It's like I have one friend who's an ultra marathon runner and I only know one person, right? So maybe you guys only know one through hiker. But basically it's a trend of folks that embark on a trail end to end and only on foot. So it's like the Appalachian Trail, for instance. So that's an example of through hikes. So yeah, giving you a real niche area of growth.
You really did your homework there. And talking about niche activities on TripAdvisor, this is one suggestion, I think. Someone asked, what does the metaverse mean for TripAdvisor?
I'm one of those folks that, a bit like you, a bit skeptical. Yeah, right now I think it's super niche. What does it mean for TripAdvisor? I think, for instance, certain brands, certain clients, they may want to be more innovative. They may want to bring to life their destination to the users. But I think, honestly, our approach to it is it's still quite a novel thing. How many folks are actually going to log in constantly and be in the metaverse? I think there needs to be an objective, right? So that's why, I think you mentioned the main universes, metaverses that are taking off are in gaming because there's an objective to it. So I think there is a future, but it's a slow start. I think as we think about how do we bring the metaverse mainstream, maybe it's more from a gaming thing. Let's think about what objectives we want our users to accomplish if we are inviting them into a virtual space.
All right, thanks. Moving on, we have two questions for Dr. Amran. First, how can we duplicate the forest restoration model to other places, and what are those main criteria to develop, to build this area?
Thank you for the question. We have to look at the community forest restoration. It is within a bigger picture. It has to be positioned in the governments or the NGOs, bigger picture of trying to create ecological corridors. It's part of this movement to create better, building back better. So how then do you identify the players? So first you have to establish, the whole region first. And within that, where would the community-based tourism destinations be partners to it? And then you have to prepare a plan of how do you get them involved. Because a lot of community-based tourism operators, it's very hard for them without their capacity to be able to understand, what they are doing. And Miso Walai Homestay is one very unique situation. The other problem here is that we might get into this trap of greenwashing. So that if you're talking about trying to do a lot for the environment, that we offer too much, but they are fake. So we have to keep it real so that greenwashing does not become the end product.
There's another question for you. Preservation costs are high. Beyond volunteerism or partnerships with external parties, do you think governments should have dedicated conservation funds?
Yeah, I think they already have. The government have got the conservation funds, and they have been used in the past to fund several projects. And I think the last budget has also announced more funding for it. So, but again, it has to be part. What is the bigger objectives of doing this? It is part of the climate change adaptation mitigation programs. If we have the right strategic direction, then it's easy to justify the need for extra funding to support such programs. We don't want to be stuck in the very ad hoc, and I've seen a lot in the past few weeks, especially then, you say that, well, we are launching this grant, so-and-so. It's a one-off grant, and it doesn't lead anywhere. Until we are able to look at these funding opportunities within a bigger picture, and then we will end up always, having a one-off fragmented project.
All right, thanks. Now, I have a question for all the panelists. So if anyone wants to chip in, that would be great. Niche tourism can't exist without mass tourism. Agree or disagree? Maybe you know, because I feel like you were talking about one of the most niche offerings that there is in the industry right now, in the market right now with Metaverse. What do you think? Can niche tourism exist without mass tourism?
It might be niche for some of you. It really depends on the definition of niche. If I'm talking right now to I do not know, what's the latest generation? Is it Generation Z, right? They would think this is something that is not novel.
It's normal.
Yeah, it's normal, right? So it's mass for them, right? And by looking at the number of populations of the younger generations, I do think it will become very massed. It's just a matter of, coming back to the objectives. Why do you need a certain technology to be there? And I think the only thing that maybe you guys could take from this session is to understand that technology should not be replacing. Right? The key word here is not replacing, because we are so resistant to technology 10, 20 years ago, but see where it gets us now, right? But if we keep it, right, we understand how it works. To understand, you have to try. Yeah, so don't be afraid to go online and just try VR chat, or even if you have an extra money to spend, you can even buy Oculus, right? It's about 2,005 ringgit Malaysia, right? It's cheaper than your handphone actually. So that's the best way to start looking into this. So my straight answer to that is, I think it will be massed.
Jane, maybe you have some thoughts on that? Niche versus mass?
Yeah, I definitely think, and of course I'm biased, I think niche tourism cannot exist without mass tourism. I think from two ways, both from a consumer perspective, but also from a supplier perspective, right? From a consumer perspective, they always say you can't, you need to walk before you can fly. And so you think about someone embarking on like some extreme adventure tours, like, let's go for a month and hike through the Amazon rainforest. That's probably not going to be a first trip. You're probably going to take a first trip somewhere closer or somewhere a lot more accessible where you feel a bit more comfortable before you move out of your comfort zone. So I think that's one from a consumer perspective. People learn how to travel. I think you think about your first trip, what was it? Versus like something more extreme. And then I think from a supplier perspective, to what extent can your business really exist only on a certain segment of consumers? I mean, maybe you can, but I think for the bulk of the industry, you probably need a balanced and diverse set of customer base. Maybe on like weekdays, you attract a certain type of segment, or maybe on the weekends, you go a bit more mass market, local deals to like make sure that your inventory is fully utilized. So yeah, that's my answer. I think it has to coexist, and certainly I think mass tourism is opening the way for niche tourism as folks want to kind of have a more personalized trip going forward. It's, I think, about translating mass tourism and creating almost niche experiences for consumers out there.
Thanks. I also want to hear what Dr. Laszlo has to say about this, because I think even within the health and wellness tourism industry, there's some mass activities, offerings, and there's some niche offerings as well. So how do you see this?
I think two points here. One, I don't think tourism or hospitality is different from any other activity in the world. You have products and services that are consumed in large quantity, regardless, hospitality or not. You will have products are priced high or freshly branded for a certain segment. So tourism is no different from that perspective. We pretend that this is a very different thing, but it's really not. Just that's our field, shall we say. And the other aspect to it is that there are lots of things that will not become mainstream because they, first of all, probably shouldn't or cannot. For example, hip replacement. You don't want to have a mass hip replacement business, do you? as beach holidays, it's not like lining up thousands and thousands of people for it. It's not a factory thing. It's very personal. This business is very, very personal. Physically, mentally, psychologically, socially, it's very you involved in that. So it's not going to be a mass thing in general, and I don't think it should be either. What could be more to the mass is the introduction of the heritage, traditional, nature, whatever based components of this well-being landscape that can actually be part of the regeneration plan or the immersive or the whatever other beautiful buzzwords you want to use right now, that people get to know the locals more. But not just like, sorry for the reference, like a peep show, which is, you know, staged heritage or tokenism for the matter, is a show, it's, you know, far away, oh, it's lovely, I have no idea what they do and why they're doing it, it's loud, fancy clothes, where's the food? So it's not like that, but when you have a certain cultural ritual that people do for cleansing or for a mental balancing or whatever that is, then it becomes more of a very, what's the word, very personal and enriching experience. So it could go more mass, if you want, but it's not the volume that counts, it's more like what it does. But mass will be around, so I don't think that's going to go.
Okay, thanks anyway. We have one final question. It's very niche in my view. I think maybe Dr. McLaren can answer this. It's asking specifically about archaeology tourism. What do you think about archaeology tourism? Because this is open to all panelists if you'd like to maybe talk about this a little bit. But I think Dr. McLaren can talk a little bit about this. What do you think about archaeology tourism, and how is this new tourism niche able to boost tourism in Malaysia or to attract travelers? But let's talk about archaeology tourism. Is there potential here specifically?
Thank you, Naila. Yeah, actually, it is part of the the resources that we have in like if inside the park we'll treat that as a tourism product, because it is related to the history. I think historical, like fossils or something like that, related to the past history of people, and we need actually to create specific niche for like archaeological tourism. So meaning that we create many or a lot of niches. So we can tap the mass tourism into that niches, segregate them. So will be actually beneficial for the tourism in the future, good for our context in the parks, because we will not be overly used. So meaning that we maintain the concept of ecotourism. We adopt the carrying capacity control for one particular niche of tourism, whether it location or activities. So I think, yes, we accept that, and we need to encourage many more people or industry to create a niche for future tourism. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Now, before we just wrap things up for today, any questions from the floor? No? All right. Well, then I guess that marks the end of. Oh, you have a question. Yes.
Sorry, can I just chip in last? I think between mass and niche, we can go on forever. But what is clear is that there will be a demand for customized travel in the future. I think we did a study for Tourism Malaysia on the Chinese market. They won't be returning until probably next year or 2024. But when our surveys in China show that when they return, they will not be traveling as in package groups and more. A few will from the they call it third tier cities who have not been outside of China. Only 10% of Chinese have got passports, by the way. But when those who are from the first tier, Beijing, Shanghai, when they come, they will still be traveling in smaller groups, but they need the tour operators to advise them. They need customized tours, so whatever you can offer, you know. So that is a kind of thing of travel that will, I think, be happening in a post-pandemic. So are we prepared? Do we have the product knowledge? Are we be able to combine all these experiences? Because bottom line is that it's all back to basics, which is it's all about the tourist experience. And food is really a part of the tourist experience. Thank you.
And with that, we'll be heading off to dinner shortly. So that marks the end of today's session. Thank you so much for sticking with us for the past 2 hours. And thank you so much for engaging in our conversation with a lot of interesting questions. And of course, thank you to our speakers. Thanks Jane, Arifa, Yusno, Dr. Laszlo, Dr. Amran, and Malarkin for joining us today and sharing us a little bit about what you guys are doing in the industry and sharing about the potential areas of growth, niche industries in tourism, niche sectors, and what could potentially be areas of growth for the tourism industry to move forward as we recover from the pandemic. So thanks once again. Let's have another round of applause for our speakers. And we'll see you at dinner tonight.
Thank you very much. Let's give a warm round of applause one more time to our moderators and also to our panelists. We will now continue with a lucky draw segment here. Please don't leave yet. I have 4 awesome prizes to give out. I have some good news and bad news. Bad news is this might drag a little bit because of the amount of people in this room. Good news is it's for you. 4 of you in this hall will win some lucky draw prizes. So, do you want to know what you will win? Okay. Well, the first 2, and Dr. McLaren, if you don't mind, I would like for you to stay with me. Kasih kawan saya dulu, boss. To answer the question that I asked you just now, what are we going to win? Well, how would you like a 3-day, 2-night stay in a garden suite with breakfast, a 300 ringgit F&B credit per day, plus a 1-hour kayaking and snorkeling package for 2 people in Terengganu at the Taras Beach and Spa Resort. So here we go. If you were here in the first session, the arcade is up right there. Let's shuffle. Let's see. I have a feeling we might have to... Miss Nur Ibtisam, are you here? Nur Ibtisam, the rule is you have to be here physically in this hall. Nur Ibtisam calling once, twice. Are we gonna reject? Calling once, twice, reject. Next. Here we go. I love this section already. Dr. Maidin. Nazrul Hakim. Dr. Maidin, are you here? No? All right. Next. Thanks for bearing with me, guys. Here we go. Mr. Sir Kok Hung. Mr. Sir, are you here? If you see your name, just angkat tangan terus, yeah? Please raise your hand right away. We want to make this as quick as possible. Calling once, twice, onwards to the next one. All right, here we go. I should win like the best MC award or something for doing this. Mrs. Madonna James Sham. Mrs. Madonna, are you here? No. Yes? No? Calling once? Twice? Let's go. Next. It increases your chance to win. The more we reject, the more chances that you'll win. Zaifri Hussein, are you here? Zaifri? Calling once. Let's go. We're having so much fun. My gosh. They don't want to go to Terengganu. So, Amirul Shazri Yusuf. No. Let's go. Next one. Dr. Vilan Kunjaraman. No. No. Let's go. Next. Mr. Redolin Dorisa. Adaka. No. Gosh, all right, let's go, let's go. Give me the loudest yell if your name is called, okay? Dato Asnimar Sukardi, Dato Asnimar, are you here? Dato Asnimar dah pulang. All right, let's go. Mrs. Siti Nur Hadis Saad. Mrs. Siti? Yes? No? Let's go. I should make a pact. Like, we should go to Terengganu together, right? Mr. Saifuddin Muhammad Tahir. He is right there. Well done. Now, I want you to follow what Mr. Saifuddin did. The moment his name is called, he immediately rise and he put up his hand, and that's how you should do it, okay? Well done. Here we go. Go ahead and receive your prize. Again, it's a 3-day, 2-night stay at the Taras Beach and Spa Resort in Terengganu, complete with a 300 ringgit F&B credit per day. Amazing. What is the next prize, ladies and gentlemen? The next one, I would like to send you to Kuantan with a 3-day, 2-night stay in a studio deluxe room with breakfast for 2 at the Swiss Garden Beach Resort. East coast of Malaysia, definitely a place to visit. Let's go. Let's see who the winner is. Puan Gay Leona, are you here? No? Let's go. Next. This is one fun lucky draw. Audrey Abel Paulus. Audrey. Gone. Let's go. Puan Aini Zulfa Abdul Rahim. Sudah pulang? Sudah pulang. All right. Next. Nur Amira Shakira. Sudah pulang? Sudah. Next. Here we go. Barbara Bonka. Barbara, are you here? Sudah pulang? Sudah. Let's go. Melvin Marcus. Melvin, sudah pulang? Sudah. Next. Mrs. Danely Romano. Mrs. Danely, sudah pulang? Sudah. Let's go. Sudah pulang means have they gone home. Sudah means yes. Lawrence Chin, please tell me you're here. Lawrence Chin, sudah pulang? Sudah. Next. Dr. Izyanti. I heard someone scream. Is she here though? Dr. Izyanti. Dr. Izyanti, sudah pulang? Sudah. Next. Mr. Alejandro Mayorga. Alejandro, sudah pulang? Next. Sorry, Dr. McLaren. This is going to be fun, yeah? Muhammad Shafiq bin Muhammad Hassad. By the time we're done, we've reached the summit of Mount Kinabalu already, okay? Muhammad Shafiq, sudah pulang? Sudah. Next. Okay, Miss Farah Johari. Farah Johari. Sudah pulang? Sudah. Teruskan. Next. Oh gosh, Mrs. Muhammad Rafiq. This is the first time that Muhammad has a prefix of Mrs. Is this a fake person? Next. Encik Nazaruddin Hamid. Well done. There's some good chi and energy right over here. I love you guys already. Make sure you're seated at the same place tomorrow, okay? Here we go. Who wants a prize? Who wants a prize? Who wants a prize in the form of an airline ticket? Who wants a prize in the form of airline ticket called Firefly? All right, here we go. So, the recipient of this ticket will receive a return ticket to any domestic destination, valid until May 31st, 2023. Are we ready? Let's do this again. Dr. McLaren, Are we ready? Let's go. We're gonna do this many, many times. Here we go. Miss Sashi. Miss Sashi sudah pulang? Sudah. Next. Miss Martha Dominic. Martha, sudah pulang? Sudah. Next. Siti Arfa. Again, the rule is for you, the moment your name is called, please rise and come on up. Siti Arfa sudah pulang? Sudah. Teruskan. My gosh. Is this a person? Is this a person? Come on now. Next. Khairul Hafizi, you better be here, dude. Khairul Hafizi, sudah pulang? Sudah. Next. Jocelyn Bunding. Jocelyn is right here. Yeah. She will receive a return ticket on Firefly. You all, well done. I have one more to give out. One more Firefly to give out. Firefly ticket, that is, not a plane, yeah? Jocelyn, come on up. Well done. Congratulations. See, it pays to stay. I know. It's been a long day for everyone, but I appreciate everyone just standing by here. I know you're just here for the prize, not us. It's okay. This is the fun part, right? This is the fun part. Now, it's okay. For those of you who are not winning anything today, don't worry. Tomorrow, I have not one, not two, but 4 plane tickets to give out. 2 on Malaysia Airlines, 2 on Batik Air. So, I really, really want to see your faces here. All right, one final prize to give out. As I mentioned, the Firefly return ticket. Are we ready? Here we go. Shuffle away. Naomi Nicole Edward. Naomi sudah pulang? Sudah. Next. Nur Fadila Kasim. Nur Fadila sudah pulang? Oh, wait. Is that Nur Fadila? Is that you? Nur Fadila, seriously, is that you? All right. Well done. Congratulations. All right. Siap dengan video lagi. Please go ahead and come up to the stage and claim your prize. And while you do so, I just need to make a few quick announcements here. Shuttle buses are ready for anyone who wants to go to Sutra Harbour for the official dinner. Please be there. I would love to see you. If you can't make it tonight, we hope to see you back in the hall tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. Breakfast will be served, yeah, Mr. Jaya? And exhibitions will also open its doors at 8 a.m. So a very good idea for you to come tomorrow morning, bright and early, to enjoy the exhibitions. And I really, really hope to see you. Congratulations. And I guess that ends day 1, ladies and gentlemen, of the World Tourism Conference 2022. I'll see you at the official dinner. It begins at 7:30 p.m. Have a wonderful evening. We'll see you there. Good night.